Please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast over Bloomberg Public Access. I'll be chairing the meeting until our chairman comes, hopefully within the hour. Are there any public comment?
It's down.
Just
Just go into appointments, I think, right? Because we're going to delay election of officers till Joe comes.
I just wanted to have Ryan be announced and welcomed, and
Yeah, I didn't see that. Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Okay, just to start off,
We'll have public comment after our appointments of the board and the public. And before we start, I would like to
welcome our new member here on the commission, Ryan Stober.
Thank you.
Thank you for stepping up.
Welcome.
Okay. Elections, we will defer until the current chairman arrives, which means we'll go right into appointments at 6 o'clock. The appointment with Adam Costa from MTC Towns Council to review of open meeting law complaint. Adam?
Where would you like
Come on up.
at the end or?
Either one. You
Whichever.
choose.
Comfortable, you're closest to this seat if you want to sit there, you can.
There you go.
Long time no see.
So I turn it over to you, Adam.
Okay, I appreciate that. So, as you know, we received an open meeting law complaint back on May 11th from Bob Ebersole, the complainant, relating to certain actions that occurred on May 8th, a few days prior to the complaint. So I know that a copy of that complaint was filed with your commission, and as required, was sent to each of you, so you've had an opportunity, I presume, to see it. I know I've spoken before. I was here just a few weeks ago on another complaint that you'd received, so I know I've spoken before about the protocol, but I'm going to cover it again. I know you have one new
Please do.
member. Generally, when an open meeting law complaint is received by a public body, the first thing I do is I communicate directly with the town manager. Once I've gotten authorization, I then speak to the full selectman if I have that opportunity, but usually it's the chair of the Board of Selectmen, just to get authorization, given the quick turnaround, to represent the public body that has received the complaint. Once I get that authorization, I then communicate with the chair of that public body. In this case, I communicated via email with Joe. And then once I've done that, I speak to sometimes just the individuals who were named in the complaint, sometimes additional board or commission or committee members, just in an effort to gain all the facts, the background that supports or contradicts the violation that's been alleged. So that's exactly what I did here. I had an opportunity to speak to several of you, had an opportunity to gather the facts and compare those to the allegations that were made in the complaint. Much of this relates to, as you know, email communication. So to some extent, that actually simplifies my job because it's not so much he said, she said, it's what do the emails say. So I've had the opportunity to review all of that, and I have prepared a response that I'm going to give you copies of momentarily in draft form. I do that because, as I had mentioned to you when I was before you last, we've got a 14 business day turnaround on an open meeting law complaint. So one question I often get from public bodies is, well, why would you go about preparing a response before you've even met with us? Well, because it's almost impossible to meet with you, get information from the full commission, prepare a response, meet with you again, and then have time post-meeting to finalize that response and to submit it within the 14 business days. So this is based upon the information that I've gathered over the course of the past couple of weeks. The second question I often get is, well, why are we just seeing it now for the first time? Can't you send this sort of documentation to us in advance so we can review it, so we're not going to spend the next 5 to 10 minutes staring down and reading your 4-page letter, 3-page letter? The reason for that is because I've gathered information from multiple sources, from a number of you. And if I were to then gather that information, put it collectively into a document, and then send that document out to all of you, I'm engaging in the same sort of behavior that we're actually speaking about tonight in the context of this violation. Unintentional as it may be, it's nevertheless a violation because I am acting as a go-between or a conduit to gather opinions from different members and then exchange them amongst the members. And even if you weren't to respond to me, nevertheless, it would still be an open open meeting law violation. So that's why we do it the way that we do it. Not the most efficient way, but I've said many times before, efficiency and the open meeting law do not necessarily go hand in hand, unfortunately. So I've got copies here. I'm going to provide them to you, give you a couple minutes to read them, and then I'm happy to briefly walk through the document and answer any questions that you might have. So keep a copy for me. Keep a copy of you, Barb.
Thank you.
And I'll pass these around counterclockwise.
Thank you.
One for you. We'll keep one for Joe and one for me. Perfect. Oh, we do have an extra one, Jane.
Okay.
Has everybody had a chance? I'm probably the slowest reader here, so I suspect everyone has read it a couple times. Any comments on the letter from the commission?
I do have a comment. I have an addition to make to this report. Carl, you sent me an email on Friday, May 4th. That would be before the last meeting. And it contained a paragraph which also referenced the Department of Environmental Protection letter, and it also was in the information that was sent and discussed with John, I believe. And I'll read from the email that Carl sent me on May 4th. The DEP response is no surprise to me. If they hadn't rejected this report, I would have been disappointed. Now I am just upset with myself for not taking a stronger position. I firmly believe that we paid Weston and Sampson for a compliant report, and that is what they owe us. There should be no additional charges or funding for meeting the DEP requirements. I believe that's an opinion about an action before the Sewer Commission. I may be overreacting. If so, I apologize in advance. But to be clear, any action on this matter should be deferred until the next meeting when we hopefully have full attendance and our new member. You certainly have a full agenda, and I would strongly encourage you to ask Weston and Sampson to wait until our next meeting to come and discuss this with the full commission. This email was sent by Carl to me on May 4th, and it contains opinions that are also expressed in the letter that Barbara had and that were given to John.
Any other comments? I guess I have one. I'm a little concerned about the first paragraph on page 3. I may be overly sensitive, but it could imply that I was intending to use Barb as a conduit. And I'm just concerned about that. That it was actually my intention for Barb to. I think you're pretty clear earlier that it wasn't the intention, and in fact, I had asked Barb that same day not to forward any of my emails, but that paragraph, the way it's just kind of plunked in there, makes it sound like there was an intention, or there may have been an intention to use Barb as a conduit.
Do you want me to respond to either or both of those comments that were made?
Yes, please.
Happy to respond. Joan, with respect to your comment first, so I'm aware of the email. The reason it's not explicitly referenced, and I can certainly add it in, I've got no objection to doing it, was because it isn't that action that, as I understand the sequence of events, constituted the open meeting law violation. Although I suppose if the conversation was had with you and then was had with John prior to then you getting the agenda, that maybe the open meeting law violation occurred a bit earlier. Either way, the communication in 2 instances with you, first, the one you just referenced, second, the actual sending to you of the 2-page email/letter, that in and of itself, neither of those items, neither of those instances in and of themselves would have been open meeting law violations. That's a communication between 2 members of a 5-member commission. Once John got involved, really unbeknownst to him, by virtue of the same opinions being conveyed to him, the open meeting law violation arose. So you are correct in saying that I suppose that the violation could have arisen earlier. Still the same individuals involved, but I can certainly make reference if that's the preference of the commission to that earlier email exchange. To your point, Carl, certainly I can make adjustments to that paragraph. So that paragraph, which begins at the bottom of page 2 and then much of which carries on to page 3, is an important paragraph. I took it more or less, or in some respects, verbatim from the same or similar opinion I gave in response to a open meeting law complaint that was filed about 2 months ago, also by Mr. Ebersol, that dealt with the same issue, which was a non-member being used as a, again, the language of the cases, conduit, but essentially a go-between for communication, facilitating communication between a quorum of a public body. And so the case law is important there. Certainly it was not my intent, as you say, I make it very clear earlier in the letter that I did not get a sense from my review of the materials or from the discussion that I had with you, or others for that matter, that there was an explicit intention in this instance to violate the open meeting law. In fact, to the contrary, the emails suggest otherwise, that once it became known to you, you quickly said that wasn't your intention.
Except it was sent to me. Except it was sent to me directly.
The earlier email.
Yes.
Understood.
And then discussed with someone else. At the last meeting we had about an open meeting law violation, I remember stating that I thought everyone should get training if I was going to approve the last one as being resolved. And I think we went around the table, and everyone said, yes, I'll get training, yes, I'll get training, yes, I'll get training, yes, I'll get training. And I said, great, if that is the case, then I can approve this one being resolved. And then I went to the training, and Adam said he remembered that same go-around on the table, yet a lot of people didn't go to the training. And I noticed that this resolution also mentions training. And I was wondering if we could get a commitment on everyone's part to actually participate. It was an outstanding seminar. It was outstanding, and one of the best parts of it was that Adam was right there so that you could ask a question, and you could get a direct answer to your question. So I was able to ask things that were not clear for me on open meeting law, and Adam was able to clearly give me the answer. Do I understand in your draft here that you're willing to come to a sewer commission meeting and do a training at a sewer commission meeting?
I am. I have a few recommendations, and you know what concerns me, and I'm not pointing any fingers here. 3 open meeting law complaints in as many months concerns me. Now, in one of those instances, my determination was that there was no violation, and I stand by that, and that's still pending at the state. And I will be the first to say that there are some things that can't be avoided. I represent other boards, other commissions, and other communities, some who receive repeated open meeting law violations, and time again, I determine that there aren't violations, in my opinion, and I've been upheld in those instances, and yet they continue to get complaints. So you can only do so much, but I'm concerned that in a couple of these instances, I've determined that intentional or unintentional, there have been violations. So I think that what needs to happen is there needs to be a better understanding, appreciation, maybe even a policy in place that tries to avoid the same fact pattern from repeating itself. I know that there's been some discussion. I know it because several of you have told me about it, and I've also had occasion to watch some of your meetings, which are broadcast. I know there's been some discussion of a communications policy. I don't know that that's going to be the end-all, be-all. I don't know if that's going to be the perfect solution, but I think that having a communications policy in place certainly gives you something to point to that could try and avoid some of these instances. Maybe it is as specific as to say, if your business manager receives an email from a member of the commission that includes anything other than very specifically identifying meeting availability for meeting dates, which is an exemption to deliberation, or something that is simply the forwarding of a third-party report, no other emails get forwarded to other members of the commission. Maybe it's something that is that specific. But I think that working to craft a policy that can be in place to try to avoid this, intentional or unintentional, and more often than not, in both of these instances, notwithstanding the comment you made about the May 4th email, my conclusions have generally been that there has been no intent. Certainly I can say that about the last response I prepared, that it didn't appear that there was any intent. And Barb has been caught to some extent in the middle of this as well, having to forward emails or knowing whether she should or shouldn't forward emails, trying to be efficient, trying to be productive, make your meetings productive, and I applaud her for that. But the challenges that exist in doing that and still complying with the open meeting law. So I think having a policy in place could go a long way. I think in addition to that, yes, the open meeting law training is helpful. I've had conversations with several of you who didn't attend. including Barb. And I understand that there were compelling reasons for why, at least in a few instances, there was not attendance. So I understand that if you couldn't make it, you couldn't make it. There were 2 sessions, but they were both on the same day. But I'm happy to come, if it is the preference of the commission, to a commission meeting. The presentations, we had a room full of 20 or 30 people, and they went an hour. I think with a smaller room, just the few of you here, we can get this presentation to under 45 minutes, maybe even under 35 or 40 minutes. So put me on your agenda some night when it's convenient, when you've got a relatively light agenda, and pencil me in for 45 minutes. And I can make the presentation.
I personally think that's an awesome idea,
do too.
because when we get to listen to everything together and we get to hear each other's questions, we really end up on the same page, and really, we're all here to try and help and work together. And I think that's an awesome idea, and I would like to see it as part of the resolution to this open meeting law violation. I would like to see it written in stone, that we'll have a training session together during a meeting.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know if we'll have a light agenda. Probably the sooner the better.
Yes, the sooner the
I
better.
was thinking it could be on the same evening that we do the communication process workshop that we've been trying to.
Right, and I was going to say, and I would also like to see that in the resolution, not just in the draft, in the final resolution, that we are going to come up with a communication policy. We've had numerous meetings over the last 2 years on this topic, and I think it would be good to actually come up with a firm policy that we can all agree to.
Yeah, I certainly agree, and as we had discussed earlier today, that your coming to a meeting would be very productive, and I think we should schedule that. That's my opinion. I don't think, as you say, we've been talking about the communication meeting. I don't think that action belongs in this response, if that's what you're intending. I think we need to stick to the complaint, and we need to take to our business, outside of the complaint.
I think
I would
that-
not support putting anything in here about a communication meeting.
I think I would disagree with you, because I think, as Adam pointed out, in several instances, the complaints have involved communication pathways that are difficult in third-person traveling of information. So I would support going into this resolution. The communication policy we all agreed on establishing anyway, and so I think it shows a good faith to the Attorney General that, yes, we've had a couple of complaints, but we're willing to really work it out, not just a training, but really work out a communication process we're all comfortable with, the town manager's comfortable with, Barb is comfortable with, Jack is comfortable with, and move forward on more productive
Do the
lines.
other boards have policies?
Not that I'm aware of. So there are selectmen's policies that have been adopted that deal with everything from meeting procedures to email communications, things of that sort. And many of those are applicable on a town-wide basis. I think that what was being discussed at prior meetings, and I wasn't at the meetings, again, I've seen portions of them on video, was a more comprehensive policy, and comprehensive doesn't need to mean that it's page after page, but something that sets forth in greater detail the communication that occurs really between meetings and via email more than anything else. That's a challenge for all sorts of boards and commissions in all sorts of different communities, large and small, urban and rural. There's a distaste for showing up at a meeting and being handed a package of information and having to sift through it and get up to speed in a matter of minutes. I'm not suggesting that has to occur in every instance. For example, much of that tends to be, I do a lot of work on affordable housing projects with the communities we represent. They've got 40B applications, and there are traffic reviews, and there are engineering reviews, and there's architecture reviews, and fiscal impact studies, and that's a lot of information to digest. But if the information's coming from a third-party source, not expressing the opinion of any member of that public body, that information can be sent in advance. You've got to be careful. You can't send an email as a member saying, this is an excellent report, I particularly agree with section 3, and then that gets forwarded to the other members, because now you violated the law. But receiving it and simply sending it out to all members to be discussed at the next meeting is perfectly fine and makes a whole lot of sense, because you don't want to be sifting through that 85-page document at the start of the meeting. But if individual board members have, commission members have comments, those comments need to be presented at the meeting and not in between meetings, really to any member to be safe, to avoid an open meeting law violation. 2 members of a 5-member commission, not a violation, but the safest course is to try and avoid that sort of commentary on matters that are within your jurisdiction, that are pending before you in between meetings, and keep the focus on what occurs, from start to finish during the meetings themselves.
Certainly support having Adam come to a meeting for the training. Absolutely, putting that in here. Just a little concerned about committing to a response and say we're going to develop a communication policy, because I think that kind of thing can drag out. It's something we need to do, but I'd be concerned about putting it, if we had to put a timeline with that in here, I would rather not include it in the response.
Any other comments?
So my objective here, as I conclude these open meeting law responses, is to advise the Division of Open Government insofar as the complainant decides to pursue this further. As you know, with the process, and maybe, I know, sir, you're relatively new to the commission, so I'm not sure how familiar you are with the process, but it's a multi-step process. When a complainant files the open meeting law complaint form with the public body then has an opportunity within 14 business days to prepare a response. That response goes directly to the complainant, and a copy is sent to the Division of Open Government at the Attorney General's office. The Attorney General office will acknowledge receipt of that document by sending a letter out both to the public body and to the complainant saying, we've received it. But then the complainant has the opportunity either to accept the response as satisfactory based upon the remedial action that was taken or the substance of the response that was given, or to appeal it further to the division. And once it's appealed further, then it's out of your hands and it's up to the division to review it, to investigate it. Typically that involves a conversation with me. Sometimes it involves a conversation with those who are named specifically in the complaint, and very often a conference call with all of us involved. And then based upon that investigation, the division will issue a determination, and that determination, based upon what it is, can order further remedial action, or everything from, on one far end of the spectrum, monetary fines, which are unusual except in instances of repeat violations, but they do occur, to, on the other far end of the spectrum, saying, you know what, you've taken remedial action that's sufficient, so we determine that nothing further is required. But there are all sorts of options in between. There are options to require additional open meeting law training, webinars, or attending a seminar. There are requirements that policies be adopted or certain actions be taken or undone, added to future agendas if the division believes that what was done was improper, proper notice hasn't been given of particular action. So what I try and do when I conclude these letters is advise the complainant, and hence the division, since this is what they see, this is our side of the story, of what we've already done and what we're going to do in the short term to try and essentially name our own remedy, so that we're not putting them in a position where they've got to dictate what that is. I'm sure that in this instance, they don't know, well, they know of the second of the complaints that was received a couple of months back, but it was not pursued any further. But they've received the first one, and they're adjudicating that. And if this one is pursued, that'll be 2 that they've received in a couple of months or 3 months. And so my sense is that they're going to probably do more than say it's sufficient that you've taken remedial action. They may require something like an open meeting law training. And so that's why I thought at a minimum it made sense for me to state in here that we're going to go ahead and do that on our own. We recognize it's important. And I'll also give a bit of an explanation as to why the one that was already held, since it was named specifically in Mr. Ebersol's complaint, was not attended by all commissioners. But I do think it's important that that happen at a minimum. Whether you want to go further and take additional action, like identifying a communications policy, that's entirely up to you. That's entirely left to your discretion.
I would like to respond to one, maybe 2 things that were said regarding the training commitment before. And I didn't make the training. However, when we said we were going to go do that, I was actually already signed up to go to Leominster for the state training, and I canceled that to go to our training, and if you recall, that got canceled because of snowstorm.
And then
So that night was not available. The night that it got rescheduled to, I was not available.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that I didn't intend to go to training, and I even, asked council if it would be helpful if I took the online training, but he offered this to come to visit us, so I think that's a better thing. But I've been to many trainings, almost one every year in my 12 years' experience here, so I'm pretty familiar with the open meeting laws, and not that, I haven't inadvertently broken them somewhere. I think I can identify probably everyone who's been on this committee since I've been on it has inadvertently broken a law, not intentionally. But I can say emphatically that none of these violations, these 3 violations, have I committed a violation. And that was made clear on the last one. I asked that question at the end of our council. I did not commit a violation. The only 2 valid complaints that we've had, unfortunately, were inadvertently committed by Barb, not by me.
Well,
And that-
but Carl, I'm going to take exception to that, because you did send me on May 4th an email where you
It's not this
expressed-
complaint. If we want to discuss other
what?
possible complaints, we can start that discussion, and that'll be quite a long discussion, because there's a lot of emails out there where people have inadvertently done things that they didn't intend to do. I'd like to stick to this. I would like to,
Well,
since
but
I
I
have
think it
to...
pertains to this issue, I really do. I think it pertains to this because it wasn't just Barb sharing the information with more than one commissioner. It's the same information, and I feel that you shared it directly with me, your opinions on it, and then you shared it directly with John, your opinions on it.
This complaint does not encompass that at all.
No,
This
but
complaint
if
is
we're
specifically
talking-
about, and this is a complaint we have to respond to. We can discuss other complaints if you'd like to, but I'd like to finish the response to this specific complaint, which, based on what was submitted with the complaint, is not valid for myself. And that's what it says. If we want
I-
to expand the complaint, that's a different subject.
I don't want to expand the complaint, but I am a bit taken aback that I have not heard you say I shouldn't send that email to you and discuss it with John. I am a bit taken aback by...
Because I'm sticking to the agenda item. That's why.
I'm just looking for a resolution in this draft resolution, and in the draft resolution, it says that it's inadvertent, but if you sent it to me and you sent it to John, that's fairly direct. I don't want to spend time filing another open meeting law violation on the same meeting and the same topic. I would just really hope that you could admit that maybe this shouldn't have happened.
I just admitted that I'm sure I have violated open meeting law. I'm sure everyone in this room, including yourself,
I don't
has.
see how you, I don't see how you can't.
You can't. It's almost
This is-
impossible, and I know you have, Joan, I know...
I haven't, Carl, and unless you're going to produce an email and read it, I haven't.
Okay.
You know, and I know at one point...
Let's put that on the next agenda. We're off topic here. Let's stick to the agenda item, which is the complaint, please. And we can put it as a future agenda item if you'd like. You can suggest that to our chair.
I would like to stick to this complaint as written, and hopefully, when Adam does the training, hopefully sooner rather than later, if these continue to happen, then we've got an issue we have to deal with.
Okay.
So, if we can get Adam to come in and do
Happy to.
training for us.
Yeah, so we can schedule that. Barb, you had an idea of when?
I don't,
Oh,
I don't know.
Oh, you said at the
Later
same
on-
time.
Well,
I-
in this agenda is also discussion of the communication process workshop scheduling, so it makes sense for those to be done.
Yes.
let's do that. Let's do that.
What is
I
the
think we all agree.
complainant's role in the board? Is he the liaison?
Yes, he is the selectman liaison.
So with agreeing to have you do the training, do you think that's sufficient?
I think that it is helpful. It's sort of difficult to say what's sufficient here. First and foremost, we don't know whether this is going to be pursued any further. So it's certainly sufficient if it satisfies Mr. Ebersol. If it doesn't satisfy him and he opts to pursue the matter further, well, then the question becomes what satisfies the Division of Open Government. From their perspective, they will have then seen 2 complaints against the same commission within a period of about 3 months, and generally aware of a third. I don't want to say that that's typical, but I also don't want to say it's incredibly unheard of. I mean, it happens. But it's just a matter of fact that the more complaints that they receive, as they stack up, they tend to issue more than just warnings. So I think it's helpful. I don't know if you're asking specifically about the communications policy and whether it makes sense to add it. I don't know how much it adds. Communications policy is going to be focused on clarifying roles and responsibilities, which sort of go hand in hand, I guess, with the open meeting law, but its sole focus is not going to be open meeting law compliance. I certainly wouldn't recommend committing to any sort of a time frame. I appreciate that those things tend to drag on. Any kind of a policy, working through it and crafting it and finalizing it tends to take some time. I think it's probably sufficient to omit it, but I wouldn't be opposed to adding it. Again, I leave that in your able hands. But I do think I need some guidance. I've heard a couple of things said. So I've heard a reference to a May 4th email and a desire to include some reference in here to that. I've heard some opposition to that based on the fact that that isn't specifically cited here in the complaint. So I need an answer on whether that's something that the commission, meaning a majority of you, wants added. And then the second item I've heard is some clarity that Carl was asking for in this paragraph that starts in the bottom of page 2 and goes on to the top of page 3, just to clarify that there was no intent with respect to this instance that we're addressing on his part, which I think I've said elsewhere, but again, can be clarified.
But I did not read anything into that paragraph that, I didn't see it the way you did, Carl. In part, I guess it's because I know you, and I can understand the concern, but I think it's pretty clear that there was no intention. So I don't see need to change that.
I agree with John. I don't think it points a finger at intent at all. No. So I think it's fine the way they have it.
Yeah, I don't feel strongly about it, because I say Adam did a good job, previously of pointing out the relevant parts of the claim. So I would be fine with the draft letter as it is.
Okay, so that's as such.
He said he was okay with it. Okay.
So do I have a motion to approve this letter as stated, as provided,
I would make
or any other motion?
to accept the letter as written.
Second?
Third? Sure.
Yeah, for a second, sure. Was that a sure or a second? I thought it was a third.
Sure.
We might get seconds.
I approve.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I just don't know if the May 4th, I feel it's very pertinent, but I don't know how the commission feels as a whole. Whether or not it's been discussed at the meeting, I'm sure Bob Eversole will be listening to the meeting, so it's up to you guys. I would like to see it in there as an attachment. It doesn't increase the number of open meeting law violations. It just elaborates on this one. Then we don't have to have any more added to it, it's just done.
I personally don't...
Violation.
I'm sorry, you done?
It's just it's all part of one violation, and it's not additional violations.
It's not what was filed, and I don't see that the commission should be, providing additional, data information, in support of a claim. We leave that up to the person who made the claim. they'll have, as Adam said, they have a chance to come back based on our response. And all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll abstain.
Abstain. I was going to get there. Okay.
Okay, so thank you for your time. I'll get this thing finalized, and we'll get it mailed by the end of the week, which is your deadline. I'll send a copy to the commission.
I would like to make one statement just before you go regarding this, because to me, and again, it's hard, when three claims have myself named. But what I see is really the most egregious thing about this claim is to me, its clear objective is to make use of the open meeting law process as a vehicle to make public, personal, and unfounded accusations against me. This is harmful and causes me great stress and anxiety. Specifically accuses me of flouting, which I had to look up, the intent of the open meeting law. Flouting is a legalistic term, it turns out, which means to openly disregard open meeting law, and I object strenuously to that. This is very serious, untrue, and a personal accusation that has no place in the public domain, especially from one of our Board of Selectmen members and liaison to the Sewer Commission. I know well the open meeting law requirements, I've been to 5 or more training sessions and work hard to avoid violations. If working to avoid a violation is considered a violation, I plead guilty, but don't believe informed avoidance of a violation in order to protect the town is a violation. Although it's the clear intent of Mr. Ebersol to make this personal, I do not take it personally, as I know such personal attacks are not really about the accused, but instead about the accuser. After 12 years of service of the town on the Sewer Commission without any valid complaints of open meeting violations against me, this is the third unjustified complaint made against me within the 3 months by Mr. Ebersol or his spouse, Mr. Daniels. Since now all claims have now been, refuted, apology would be appropriate, but I understand this is not likely. However, I would hope that they would stop. I am just a volunteer who has been working hard and doing my best to serve our community and get the real work done within the challenging constraints of the municipal way. I suggest we all focus our efforts on doing the work of the community and avoid making things personal. Let's work together to help each other learn. This could have been a learning experience instead of this. And do a better job and not file complaints and then get the facts later after causing more distraction and legal costs to the town. I hope we can get back to business. Thank you. Thank you, Adam.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you. Thanks, Paul.
Okay. It's on YouTube very soon, coming to a channel near you. Not it. I couldn't say it again exactly that way. And I didn't read it right either. It's a little stressful sitting here with this. Okay, anyway, let's get back to business. That's the goal. Our second appointment of the evening is with Scott Fitzgerald from Stiles. Is that correct? Close enough? Corporation. What are you going to show? Oh, great. Hardware. I love hardware. Okay. We've invited two companies in tonight. We're working on updating our irrigation meter, and I guess meter policy, or beyond irrigation meters, Bob has pointed out to us. We have about 81 meters in town that we have to read quarterly, and they're quite outdated, and there's a lot of things going on in the irrigation, not just hardware, but policy-wise as well, so please stay tuned. But we do want to see if we can upgrade the meters so that they're not only better functioning, but they maybe are lower cost to gather data, and can we get more electronic data? So we have two representatives here tonight. The goal, or at least the interest of the commission, is to perhaps identify the best meter to go forward with. maybe we'll identify two, I don't know what it'll end up, but we need to get these under control so that we can do this effectively and efficiently. It's costing us a lot of money now, and we're not getting great results. So without further ado, no, it's not quite passed it out. I can keep talking.
We also have a lot of our users who are concerned about getting a new meter and don't know what to get.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I don't know how many are out there who are actually thinking about getting a meter, but hopefully you can wait a little bit till we decide what the meter is, because right now, you would be forced by our current policy to get a manual meter, manual read meter, and we would, really prefer not to propagate that ancient technology. So if you're thinking of getting a meter, please come talk to Barb. Stay tuned with where we are with identifying and recommending what the meter would be and what the meter policy would be. Mr. Fitzgerald, please.
Thank you.
The floor is
Thank you.
yours.
I appreciate the kind introduction. If you don't mind, speaking of introductions, I'll give you a little bit of history. My name is Scott Fitzgerald. Coincidentally, I'm born and raised and still live in this beautiful town. And I work for a company called Stiles Company. Stiles Company is a family-owned company. We operate out of Norwood, Massachusetts. We service all of New England, and we're the exclusive distributor for Badger meters here in New England. Been operating since October 4th, 1983. Badger Meter, on the other hand, has been in business for 113 years. Publicly traded, very viable entity, and you'll soon see the fact that they stay kind of cutting edge on the different technologies today, because I think as we get into this, you might see that the water meters that might be in some of your basements have changed considerably over the years. So what I did do is I put these information packets together, and I actually selfishly put them together for me, because we sell hundreds of different types of meters, and it's easy for me to go off on a tangent and start talking to you about mag meters and so on and so forth, but you're obviously in a very unique situation where you're not looking at, 5,000 or 50,000 meters like we're used to. You're looking for a very small quantity of meters, and after going through some emails with Barb over the last few months, over the invitation of coming in and showing you our portfolio, we narrowed it down to a couple of different options, but I think one of them stands out more than the other. But we always have, knowing that there are multiple companies coming in, I also want to be able to offer a alternate, if you will, to be competitive and comparative to them. So, if you want, I'll take you, I'm guessing, and knowing that we're running about 15 or 20 minutes behind schedule, I'm going to do everything I can to get you back on track. But more importantly, I'm guessing that you don't really want to sit here and find out exactly what every gallons per minute meter is and so on, so forth, and all of its capabilities. I'm guessing you want to know what my meter can do, how it can benefit the people in Lunenburg, and more specifically, how it can benefit you folks, and of course, I'm going to leave some time for the pricing too, because the pricing is somewhat confusing. So if we grab the packets and we walk through the first couple of pages, okay? The first few pages labeled the disc meters. That's the specifications for your historic bronze base, heavy water meter that I would say probably 90% of the people in the area have in their basement. It's a nutating disc technology. I brought the sample of a cutaway in here because it's important to show, as we show what we think is the best option for Lunenburg, is that there's a lot of mechanical pieces inside this thing, and it does wear down over time. This particular package is usually warranted for 10 years with a 10-year prorated warranty, again, because things do unfortunately break down over time. Knowing that we're dealing with a pretty small amount of meters for the town, it's more importantly to eliminate callbacks as far as going out and having to revisit meters that something breaks down inside of them. So the next step for this particular technology is to decide which register you'd want to put on top of the meter that speaks to the transmitter. So there's 3 parts to this particular meter. The meter, which is the cash register, the cutoff man, if you will, the register that interrogates and accepts the usage from here and then transmits it over here to the transmitter, which in turn transmits it back to you. All in all, that's 58 and 60 technology. But what I'd like to do is basically kind of cut to the chase and talk about the latest and greatest technology that municipals are really starting to focus on installing. In the last 7 or 8 years in the water industry, they've implemented an ultrasonic water meter technology, which ultrasonic being that we're eliminating all the moving parts inside the meter. Virtually nothing to break down over time. Ultrasonic, it is rocket science. It's pretty strong technology, but basically what it's doing is it's measuring the ID of the inner tube with the pressure and the velocity of at this pressure, X amount of water can flow through this meter over a certain period of time, and that's how it actually reads the water. So there's nothing, even suspect water is a challenge for breaking down that meter, because if you're welcome to pass these around too. If you look through that meter, you'll be able to see right through it where you can't with ones that have all the moving parts inside. Knowing what you're using this for, I don't think that the water quality will be suspect at all, knowing that it's coming from the district. They put out a great product. But more importantly, it's about the wearing and tearing and breaking down. And obviously, the flagship of that particular meter is for a small upcharge that you'll see on the pricing that I provided for you tonight. Over the 20-year period, it's fully warranted for 20 years. So if there is a callback situation where the meter is gone out of accuracy, fails to communicate with a transmitter, the Lunenburg Sewer Commission hands it back to me and I replace it 100%. Over the last 8 years, I've replaced about 3 of them. It doesn't happen too often, but there are electronics involved and sometimes they do fail. The one common thread between these 2 technologies is what I think is going to be a big benefit for the town, and it's state-of-the-art technology in the water industry nowadays. But historically, as you all know, water meters have always been either, the water department comes over, climbs in your bulkhead, goes down and reads your meter, writes it in their book. Over the last 10 years, they've gone from what's called touch technology, where they walk up to the side of your house, they touch the little prongs on the side of your house, they get the reading on their handheld, they bring the handheld back to the office, download the readings, send it over to billing. Since probably about 1990, 1992, radio drive-by has been a great success for us. The transmitter is almost identical, but instead of sending this to the cloud, it's sending it to a handheld or a laptop device. I mention that because the technologies we're going to talk about tonight eliminate the infrastructure costs. This transmitter, whether we put it on a bronze base with a high-resolution encoder, or if we put it on top of an ultrasonic meter, transmits right to the cloud. So you're eliminating rolling trucks, eliminating meter readers, and everything that comes with it. Extended service warranties each year, the cost of those, the cost of the handhelds to read the radio drive-by, the cost of the laptop to read the radio drive-bys. So for those reasons, I think that over the last few months, going back and forth with Barb on email, that's kind of the product that we wanted to try to focus on tonight, because I think that when we get into the pricing, you're going to see that it's a rather large, it's very advantageous for the town to pursue that technology because of the lack of large upfront infrastructure costs, being handhelds and laptops. So going past the hardware, if you will, behind every good product is an incredible software, right? We have what's called a Beacon software. Our Beacon software talks to both technologies, whether it's cellular or it's mobile. I'd be happy to put it up. I don't know if my iPad is compatible, but, and I can also do a demo right here on my iPad if we need to. But I've got some screenshots on here of the different capabilities that the Beacon software can do. Now, how does this actually work? How this actually works is once it's installed in the basement with a water meter, it's as easy as just running as little as 1 cubic foot through the meter, and it activates the transmitter. The transmitter then goes into report mode where it will pick up, it's an LTE-based transmitter, so it's predominantly AT&T, but it has 66 different background aggregates that it will hop to different stations if it needs to, for those tough-to-read areas, if you will. I can't really think of that many around that I've had a problem with, because I actually do that to be able to sit with people and do this, is that I have a Verizon phone, but I have an AT&T laptop, iPad, so that I can test signals. When we do get into these discussions, it's important to let people know that, you know, just because you're I'm going to say, down the hill behind Settlers Crossing, if you lose your signal down there by Newest Townsend Road, that you get your call drops. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to affect this technology, because this is based on the same as a text. It's transmitting data. It's not transmitting voice. Voice and data are two different animals. So what this transmitter does is it tallies the communication or the consumption over a 24-hour period, and once a day during the off-peak, it reports in 24 data packs, 1 data pack for each hour. And with those data packs is how we can do graphs, and we can do all the pretty things on the website that you saw up there. And each transmitter is individual for each application. We'll use Town Hall and the old honey farms as an example. I mean, it's okay to have one in each building. They're not going to interfere with each other. What is important for the commission is to make sure that you keep track of each individual serial number for each one, and make sure it's allocated to the proper address, which is all part of the installation process, which I'd be happy to help with. Data packs, if when you have a chance to see the dashboards, the software was developed to be about as user-friendly as you can get. If you look at the top of that sheet going around, there's basically 4 tabs. There's an at-a-glance, which is basically your entire system. It'll show you, if you have all 90 units installed in your system and you log on, which it's cloud-based, so you can log on from anywhere. You can log on from work, you can log on from home. If you're on vacation and you want to, read meters, you're more than welcome to. Not advised, but the at-a-glance page basically tells you how your system is doing, as far as, 95% or 98% of my meters reported in last night. I say 94, 95% because for meters that might have struggled to report in last night, they will be scheduled to report in again the following night, and if they did not report in, they will backfill that data. So even if it takes 2 or 3 days for it to report in, it'll give you all the historic data going back. The next tab on that form, and again, there's only 4 tabs throughout this whole software, is the second tab is what's called the monitoring page. That's how you would actually look at each individual account or customer, be able to track their usage, not necessarily get their reads, although you can, but I'm gonna get to the reads in a minute when I get done with those tabs. But the other 2 tabs are basically just, administrative. You have an assets tab, which is basically where you go to enter the data. If you were to install this in this building, there's probably about 15 or 20 fields of data that you want to enter into the software to get it to speak with this, account numbers, address, so on and so forth, Town of Lunenburg. So that's not really a tab that's used on a regular basis once you're reading your meters. The last tab, will take a couple minutes to explain because perfect timing, thank you. The last tab is for users, and the users would be at your discretion. Whoever you wanted to, within the commission, able to read the meters, send them off to billing. Is this for a billing situation? Okay, so that's the tab that you would use to authorize people to get access to the account. You'd have administratives, and then you have what's called an ion water tab. This is probably the coolest advancement in the metering industry over the last 4 or 5 years, is that with this package, you have the ability to invite the homeowner, whoever buys that meter, to through email and your cloud-based website or link or URL, they can go in to the system and set up what's called an ion water account, which allows them to watch and monitor their usage. Again, daily, monthly, weekly, yearly, whichever they prefer. And the reason why that's so important is because, I'm going to just use a historic example of the older technology, if you will. Let's say it was, well, I'll use 2 examples if you don't mind. Let's just say with the older technology, with the plastic generator head and the outside dial, the old number wheels that you used to go up to the side of the house and read, if something happened in the house, broken pipe or somebody left the garden hose on, and all of a sudden the bill goes through the roof, and, you know, you're reading once a quarter or bi-yearly or maybe even once a year, it's too late. By then, it's, oh, time out, you know, you guys read my meter wrong, you know, there's no way in heck I ever used that water. Back then, it was common basically to abate the bill and just say, okay, listen, we can't prove that you used the water, so we will work this out with you. The other example I'll use is radio drive-by. Radio drive-by has this technology. However, the meter reader does not reap the benefits of the real-time read like you do with the cellular. And the reason why I say that is both you and the homeowner can access that ion water account for all your customers, and you can put parameters in there for gallons per minute. Normal gallons per minute is anywhere between 3 and 4 gallons a minute in a household. If you put a 5-gallon threshold in there, so that when it hits the 5-gallon threshold, you can enter a text number or an email address, and it instantly will email the homeowner or the town, and just say, hey, we might have a problem over here. And what that does is it eliminates, going back to the example I was using of reading quarterly or monthly, it eliminates that water running for the next 30 days, 40 days, before the bill gets up there. And going back to what I said before is the burden of proof is now clear. Through the pretty graphs, if you will, we can produce graphs through your software to show the homeowner, you know what, you did use the water, and this is actually when you used it, and then all of a sudden, you know, the Alzheimer moment goes away, and they realize, oh, you know what, I did fill my pool, I forgot about that. So that's a great feature to have nowadays. It basically eliminates abatements for usage. I know you deal with abatements on a different level, but I'm just using it as far as water usage. Any questions to this point?
Just you mentioned, the one thing caught my ear was AT&T. Is it strictly, because I know at my house, data or anything else, you can't get AT&T, so does it depend on AT&T?
No, it's got the 66 aggregate backups, so it does bounce towers if in fact we weren't able to read down there, but I use my iPad all the time down there, but I'm a little higher too. So that could be it. So in an effort to try to get you back on time, if you will, in your packets. Obviously, feel free to call any one of the references I offer tonight. We have a policy, the gentleman that owns our company is 84 years old, and we've got a policy within the company that if they use it, we use them as a reference. So his mentality is if they're not happy, make them happy, so that we can use them as a reference. So there aren't anybody not on this page using this technology. That I tried the best I could to use examples of people around that size too. Shirley, Leicester, and Cherry Valley all have a relatively small amount of units in as opposed to the 4,500 that we're using right now in Northborough. But those are the references. Feel free to reach out and ask them how their experience has been. Warranty information, I just wanted to back that up to everything that I had stated about the 20-year warranty.
The batteries too?
The batteries too. The one thing to point out, though, is that when we get into the pricing right now, you beat me to it, the transmitter floating around, right here, that is, the prices furnished tonight are for 10 years full, meaning that the cellular companies are the ones that don't want to go past 10 years. We'd love to, but they don't want to, which is why we ship everything with the, what's called a twist-tight connector. The meters are 20 years, so after that 20 years, and each individual account would be flagged after the 9.5 years. You start getting a caution sign saying, hey, your transmitter is coming up for renewal, and so on and so forth, so you'd have to get in and replace it after 10 years. So, for this, I apologize. We don't have probably the most fluent quoting system, if you will. But I wanted to make sure that I quoted both technologies, just so that you had apples to apples and all of the information that you could. So if we look at quotation ending in 352, that particular quotation, let's see, is for a cellular package, which what I think I've decided would probably be the best fit because you have such a small amount of meters, and you'll see why I say that in a second. It's a relatively small upfront infrastructure cost for your software. And then the next two lines, the second and third line after that, are actually for this package over here. I gotta keep these separate now. For this package over here, with the meter head wired to the transmitter, okay? And then what I did was I also, and it's the same on both pages, the last two lines are an alternate bid that I'm hoping you consider just because of the longevity of the product, put it in for 20 years and not worry about it. That would be for the ultrasonic E-Series technology, which is basically that meter in this transmitter.
So the one ended in 5.2 is that meter and that transmitter?
It's both of these.
It's all of them.
But it's operating it with a cellular technology. Just reading it right off the website, okay? And the last page, the reason why I put that on there is just to give you an idea of what a mobile drive-by system would cost. You know, and this is, I think you're gonna find out this is pretty, even that is pretty competitive with my competition, is that the mobile drive-by is a lot more expensive because there's handhelds and laptops involved. And there's also, one thing that I hope that you try to investigate a little bit is, this is basically for your first year, okay? X amount of dollars per meter, and then the $17,100 upfront charge for your software. What we do in there, in the cellular upfront, everything's covered for the 10 years.
Can I ask a question? Sorry.
Yes, sure. No.
Go further. Okay, so I'm looking at the first quote, the one that ends in 352.
Correct.
And I see your little red instructions for which line stands for what.
Right.
I just want to make sure I have it right.
Translation.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I have it right, okay. So you're saying that line 1 would apply to both systems? Because that's the software and the hardware? Whether
Line
we
one-
use with this or that, line 1 is for both systems?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yep.
Line 2 is this object.
That's right.
This meter which goes with the other one.
Yep.
And line 3 is this.
Correct.
Line 4 is the transmitter for this.
Correct.
Line 5 is that.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
No, that's a misprint, because you, actually, line 3 is your head with your transmitter.
Line 3, okay.
Yep. Yeah, so, because line 4 is actually a blank
Okay, so
item.
this is 2 items.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm glad I asked. And, okay, so then line 4 is your fee per month, got that.
Yep.
Line 5 is what?
Line 5 is just saying that it's an alternate meter. Everything below that is my alternate. Correct.
The better one that lasts for
Yeah.
20 years and is guaranteed for 20 years.
exactly.
That's the one that's guaranteed for 20 years. Line 6 is
1, 2, 3, 4.
the red on the bottom. here.
Yep, that's this.
That's the alternate.
Oh, no, that's what I'm saying, is that that's out of whack, because I had to break it down up front, and I didn't go
So
back and change
what
the red.
Should I cross something out down here?
Yes, so
Okay.
the best way to do it is, line 1 stays the same, line 2 stays the same, line 3 stays the same, line 4 stays the same, line 5, line 6, no, line 7, I was just off with my math. Yes, so you do, you add line 6 and 7 together, which is 0 carry anyway, so it's 265 for this.
Yep,
Okay?
yep.
And then you'd add line 2 and 3 together to get your meter charge if you go
This is the
to the
drive.
bronze. No,
It's just the one that has the moving parts, 10 years and then 10 years prorated.
correct.
Got it.
Gotcha, okay.
So I don't get it. So is line 2 and 3, you add those two together, and that's the mechanical one?
That's correct. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
So either those two added together, or the 265?
Correct.
For the...
Correct.
Ultrasonic, okay.
I got it. Sorry.
No,
Wanted to be clear.
because I want to get back to that, because it's consistent with both pages on the breakdown. The difference would be obviously line 1.
And so the
Right.
so the next page is your mobile drive-by system.
Correct.
Okay, I got it.
Now,
10 grand more.
correct, yeah, well, there's handheld and on-site training
Yeah.
involved. What I do think is worth, my phone is gonna go beep, beep, beep when I hit my time limit, so I want to make sure that I respect that. Oh, we're doing good, we got a couple minutes. One thing that I want to stress, that isn't quite clear the way that we quote this, that line 4 on both, well, let's use it on the first sheet first, on the cellular sheet.
Yep.
Service?
That 89-cent fee per unit, per month, per year, for 10 years.
So it's locked in.
It's locked in, exactly. So it's quoted on here as 89 cents, but for your system, let's say 90 units, your 90 units to start out would be, be $80 a month. It'd be $961 a year. That seems very high. And about $9,500 over the life of the meter over 10 years for the transmitter. Is that confusing? No. Okay, good, perfect. Now, if we can, go to the mobile drive-by quote, and on that same line, you're gonna see that it drops way down to 15 cents.
8 cents.
Which is great. Well, the truth is that they've already got it up front with the 10 grand up front.
Yeah.
And they go into mobile. You still have,
9,500 is...
it dropped from 89 cents. It's not going to the cellular companies like a cellular transmitter, but you still have a lot of other infrastructure costs in there, and then obviously a lot more costs for you folks as far as paying somebody to go out and read them, and more importantly, rolling trucks, the expensive rolling trucks.
So there were no other costs for the internet or cloud or anything else?
No, it is...
Everything is in
that
at 89 cents?
That's exactly my point, is that it's all included at that 89 cents.
Got it.
I don't know how you plan to structure your sale of the meters, but obviously, I mean, that's something that you want to address right up front. Most towns will, at $265, and then another $107 for the life of the 10-year transmitter. A lot of other towns will sell that for, $400, $425.
I'm sorry, what was
The question is, the town is selling it, so you're saying the town is purchasing them and selling them to the...
Yeah, there's actually a lot of ways to do it. I mean, well, there's two different ways you could do it, especially because I'm local. Is I would probably not get into, leaving Stamford, Connecticut to drive back and grab 1 meter to drop it off on Flat Hill Road, but I'm happy to orchestrate the sale 1 at a time, 2 at a time to drop off over at the highway barn, for sure, if that would happen. And now, what I do for a handful of customers is for people that don't want to orchestrate the sale of the meters, that you can give my office contact information to anybody in town. They will call, I'll have the specifications on the board right next to the phone, and they'll say, okay, I need a sewer meter for Lunenburg, Mass. And they'll look up there and they'll say, this is it, they'll program it, they'll ship it to the homeowner, they'll charge the homeowner for the meter, and they'll charge the homeowner for shipping. So,
And then the installation is the homeowner's responsibility.
correct, correct, yeah.
So is there any minimum, is this per unit based on any minimum or anything? I mean, 'cause-
The only minimum is basically, in order for Badger Meter to perform the training, to teach everybody how to use the software, they want to have 10 units installed in town.
Okay.
So if you could keep
Reasonable.
it somewhere around 10, that'd be great. I think I kept my promise.
When you're saying the pricing sort of scenario of the meter, I thought I heard the 265 plus something else.
Plus the monthly fee.
Oh, the monthly fee, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but,
No,
all right,
the
but the monthly
265
fee-
is soup to
Yeah.
nuts.
Yeah, okay.
The only other cost that could be associated, but well, I'm happy to provide pricing for it as well. You need what's called meter spuds, meter connectors to tie it in. I sell them. I didn't include it in the proposal, but, any plumber that's putting them in will have them right on his truck, so.
Oh, is there any, we haven't discussed this detail, and sort of along the lines Joan was saying of, what options are there to doing this? I would envision one simplest option for us and the customers might be, that we would pay the monthly fees, not the homeowner. They would be responsible for the meters and so forth, but that we would pay the monthly fees out of,
Savings.
what revenue we would have from the, from the customers. So, sure.
Well, the thought behind that is you'd basically be paying that to eliminate people out on the street. It would be your price or your cost to not put people out on the street,
I didn't follow that.
to read it.
Oh,
Yes,
readers.
to justify it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because we would have to pay people to go out in trucks to read. So that would be that's what he's saying.
Yeah, and that would also get a little tricky, if you will, if we were going to, it depends on what process you choose to purchase them.
Yeah, no, I'm personally, focused on the cellular approach.
Yeah.
And I was just seeing if there was any flaw, so when we have our discussion, in the thought of the sewer commission, the enterprise fund, paying the monthly fees. We have users, they've got permits to use these meters, they're offsetting the bills, so we know who they are. It might be simplest for us to pay the monthly fees once, they buy the meter and they're basically done. What's the fly in that ointment?
That gets a little tricky there, mainly because we need to assign, out of our obligation to the cell companies, we need to assign that transmitter to the town. And if you're paying the bill, that's fine, but I think it's an invitation for a lot of errors to have the homeowners get the meter from, say, my office,
Right.
and get it on their own, and then you police this. We haven't done it, but we probably could. Because it's kind of tough to turn around and tell the homeowner to go buy this, and then have you pay the 89-cent fee, because if you want to do it monthly, you certainly could. But most people, quite honestly, pay it up front. It's called a fully loaded endpoint.
Upfront for 1 year, but then every year they have to pay it again, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, all right.
That's something you
So,
can-
no, it's good input, because I wouldn't have envisioned
Yeah,
any
just-
problem with that, but,
This here, that there, just,
and what happens when they don't pay it?
Well, it's part of their sewer bill. No,
Yes.
it's part of,
They wouldn't get any credit, right? They wouldn't
no,
get any...
if they purchase the meter directly from me,
Yeah,
they would be paying for the meter
all right.
and the 10-year transmitter. There'd be no monthly fee.
Oh, wait a minute, I missed that. So what's the upfront cost
It would be,
for homeowner?
for a homeowner at the 265, let me just see.
10 years at almost $100, $1,200? $1,000?
$1,000. You said $961 a year,
It's 89 cents a month.
so times 10, it's $9,601.
Yeah, no, it's, see, that means I'm over my time. No, it's $106 over the 10-year cycle. It's 89 cents a month, okay, $10.68 a year, 107 over the life of the thing, so that's...
107 for 10
yes.
years.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
So that being said,
okay.
you're still looking at a cost of somewhere in the high threes.
Yeah, okay, now I understand the number that was associated, that you're adding to the 260, and it's only 107.
And many utilities, towns, they do make sure that they cover their costs.
Yeah.
As far as,
Yeah, I mean, we would have any
Mark
cost
it
we
up.
recover, but thanks for doing the calculation, because 107 is not an issue. It's somewhere I got crazy and thought it was 1,000, I thought that would be a lot upfront.
I might have even implied that, because I went through that so fast.
So the town's only expense necessarily would be the 17,000 software upfront?
Or the 7,000, right?
Well, 17 if you went with the mobile.
Oh, okay, sorry,
71.95, I think, for the
Yeah,
cellular.
150.
But you're right, Bob, that is,
that's the 10.
that's the first check. Exactly. And then buying meters after that, whether you bought them or if you push it off to the homeowner, that would only be your only
Yeah.
expense.
What's the disadvantage to the mobile?
To the mobile, well, basically everything I already mentioned, as far as you'd have to, obviously, the upfront cost. The second would be, you have to have somebody that can manually operate all that stuff and maintain it, account records, so on and so forth. Gas expense, liability expense. We're all salespeople, we get into it, we start pointing out, well, geez, what about when they get bit by dogs because they're going over to read the meter and stuff like that. That's all, going cellular takes that all off the table.
Plus, you said that reading the meter, if I remember correctly, means you only get this one number in time, you don't have the constant data feed. Is that-
No.
No, that's okay.
You saw the screenshots of the data you get from the cellular?
Yes.
You get that same data from the mobile drive-by.
Okay,
Unfortunately, you gotta go get it. You have to go to the residence, you have to park outside
so
with a
it's a time
handheld.
delay.
Sure, yeah, exactly.
Time delay,
Exactly.
okay. So you didn't have those high alarm alerts?
Well, you have the high alarm alerts, but you don't get them until you read the meter.
Well, right, well,
So depending on how frequent you're reading the meter, that goes back to what I was saying
I get
before.
it.
Again, another nice selling point for the cellular.
Yeah. Excellent.
So cellular, if you fill your pool, you'd have to make a call or lift the cap on it. If you had a 5 gallons per minute.
no, it's just an email.
Oh, yeah. No,
No, it's not, it just means you would get an email or a text
Right.
message saying you have used over this amount. It's not going to stop anybody.
More importantly is you'd basically access your app, okay? And you'd turn off that notification because you know it's going to trip. But what is worth mentioning is theft. I mean, years ago, people used to take the meter head off and so on and so forth. You can't do that now, no matter what technology. Obviously, the E-Series meter, if you were to take that out of service, that's going to give you what's called an empty pipe alarm. There's no water in it. Ding, 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 ding. You might want to go knock on their door.
Yeah.
The other technology with the register and the bronze base, if a homeowner were to take that head off, there's a magnetic tamper now. It's a sensor. And it'll say tamper removal. And again, that would come in either monthly if you drove by or quarterly, or it would come in right away on cellular. So.
Good.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks.
I purposely put my business cards in those pads so that if any questions do come up tomorrow, feel free. Or just stop by the house and knock, I don't care, it doesn't matter.
Thank you very much. No, thank you, Scott. Thank you very much. Okay. All right. I'm going to slide down. I'm going to slide down here and give Joe the pivot.
How did the the T-ball, softball, baseball?
Tie again.
What age group?
7 and 5. Yeah, like 4 to 7.
Good evening. Good timing, we just, yep, gonna pass right back.
Thanks, man.
We are right there.
Oh, did we haze the new guy yet, or waiting for me? Okay, good.
Here, I'll pass it down.
Oh, no, it's up there. Joe,
This is yours right here. Thank you. How was Turkey? Fun? Vacation? Oh, absolutely.
wish I was still there. Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. Tom Garrity. I'm with Tie Sales, and we represent Neptune up here in New England. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the system that we offer today, and I'm going to go through Tie Sales as a company a little bit, just tell you a little bit about ourselves. The system we're going to be proposing today is an R900 system. It is a Neptune system. And what it is, it's fully migratable. So you guys all have presentations on the right side, if you'd like to follow along. And when we talk about migratable systems, I'm sure you've talked to other manufacturers, and you will. Neptune has focused on one product for all of its solutions. It's an R900 radio, and it transmits both a mobile signal as well as a fixed signal. So Tie Sales, we've been in business for 55 years now. We're in Sudbury, Massachusetts. We are a level 1 distributor of Neptune and have been for about 30 years. We carry $2 to $3 million in inventory in Sudbury at all times. And what that allows us to do is next day delivery on all parts and meters. Tie Sales, being a level 1 distributor, has the requirement to employ system specialists, and that's very important when you get into dealing with software and the network. Our system specialists are employed for the only reason to make it easy for when Barb needs the reads to go out to get her bills out. They're there to help with that. If there's any malfunctions in the system, they're constantly available. There's 3 ways that we do that, and one is Peterello would be your system specialist. He lives up in Portsmouth, so he's available. You get his personal cell phone number, It's not a 1-800 number. And he either can answer questions over the phone, he can team viewer into your computer, or he will come down and be on site. So Neptune has been around for over 100 years, and they've been making positive displacement meters. I don't know how familiar you guys are with water meters, but positive displacement nutating disk meters, they measure a known quantity of water. So what comes in gets measured and then goes out. They've been no lead since 2001, and it became an industry standard in 2013. Neptune was ahead of the game on that, just for the health of their employees. They are the only manufacturer out there to own a bronze foundry in the United States. So every part that you'll see here today is manufactured in Tallahassee, Alabama. Right from the plastics to the bronze to their own machining for the screws. So they both manufacture the radio and the water meter. We're gonna go over a few different things. We're gonna go over this bronze body, which is what we call the water meter. We're gonna go over register heads, and we're gonna go over radios. We're gonna touch on a little bit of reading equipment and the capabilities of Neptune and Neptune software. If you guys have any questions, feel free to chime in at any time. I'm sure some of you know something about this. Some of you have a water meter in your home, some of you don't. So please feel free to ask any questions you need to.
I would point out, I believe Water District has all Neptune meters.
That is correct.
This is the company used by the water,
Yep,
company used by the water district? Correct.
yep. So we've been partnered with the water district since, I want to say, somewhere in the mid to late 90s. And I'll get a little bit more into their system and the comparisons to this system here in a couple minutes. So if you do have water meters in your basement, what you would see is this bronze body right here. So these are 95% accurate at 1/8 of a gallon. That's published, and that is a greater published accuracy than any other positive displacement meter on the market. The industry standard is twice that. It's 1/8 of a gallon. And again, there are no lead since 2001. And there's a lifetime warranty on this body. So if the bronze body here actually cracks or breaks in any way, the body is guaranteed for life. Meaning you give it back to me, I ship it to Neptune, we get you a new body. The internal parts are all rebuildable and replaceable if you guys see fit. Some departments like to do that and some don't.
So what's the warranty on the internal parts?
The warranty is 1 million gallons.
1 million gallons. Got it. Thank you.
So on the next page, what you'll see is just what the inside of the meter looks like. And that is a nutating disc. So it's a known quantity, what comes in, it wobbles. Do you guys bill in cubic feet or? So every 472 wobbles of that disc equals a cubic foot.
So if I could just ask one question again. 1 million gallons is the warranty for the brass internal parts, moving parts. What does that translate to in terms of approximate average usage in years?
In years, so we have some really good examples of that. So Westford is a community that's close to you guys. They test every water meter that they pull from service. And they were on a plan with the DEP to change out their water meters every 15 years. So they've been pulling samples of those, and they've actually run year 18 and have opted to not replace any of the meters because they're all testing 100% accurate.
18 years?
So 20 years is what we consider an expected life in an average household.
Thank you.
And so you see the internals there. Now, this next page just shows a little bit about commercial and industrial meters. I don't know if you guys are getting into any of that. Most likely not. It's more of a water department thing, so we'll skip a little bit over that. And so we offer a couple different options on our register heads. And this is what we would consider a register head right here. And what this does is this has a magnet that drives in the top here, and this has a magnetic coupler right here that registers the known quantity of water. The important thing about these registers on these meters is that they do not have a battery. And one of the reasons that that is very important is because water systems don't have power. So the most common failure point in any of the meters or radios, excuse me, would be the battery. A lot of our competitors have batteries, all solid-state meters have batteries, and depending on which other technologies you're looking at, it's a question that you should ask. So what these registers do is they calculate registration. They have leak detection within them. So the register interrogates itself every 15 minutes throughout the 96 periods in a 24-hour day and says, did I move, did I move, did I move? If it answers yes all 96 times, it registers as a continuous leak. If it answers yes greater than 60, it registers as an intermittent leak. So what that allows is with the E-coder register, which is this register right here, a homeowner can come down and they can shine a light on this LCD screen. If they see a solid faucet, it'll mean that they have a leak. If they see a flashing faucet, it means they have an intermittent leak. It also registers reverse flow, so if anyone's tampering with the meter and turning it around, and it also registers no flow. So if there has been no usage at a property for a long time, you would know that there's a possibility of tamper, there's a possibility that the property is vacant, and you would know to investigate at that point. Now, these registers all contain 9 digits on them. 8 of the digits transmit over the radio. So your resolution's very great. Even though you're billing in hundreds of cubic feet, the reporting that you're able to do back at the office would allow you to see a much greater resolution of usage and a greater resolution when it comes to things such as leaks. And if you flip to the next page, it just shows what those icons look like. The other thing that it displays it shows you the read on the meter when it's lit up, and then it'll toggle between the read and the rate of flow. So you can tell somebody if everything's shut off in your house and you light this up and it's showing that you have a rate of flow greater than 0, there's probably a leak, toilet running, something to that effect that's causing usage to go through the meter. The next page is our ProCoder register. This is probably the product that I would recommend to you guys, and for a couple different reasons. Number one, it would differentiate your meter from the water department a little bit, so people will be able to easily identify water meter versus, are we calling them deduct sewer meters? How are we calling them?
Irrigation meters.
Irrigation meters. Okay. So, these registers have the same capabilities. The only thing different on this register is it's very visual in terms of if you shut everything off and you see that red little hand on there moving, you know that there's flow going through the meter. And again, the resolution on this is down to the 100th of a cubic foot. Yep, and this is, you guys can pass that around if you want to take a look at it. So these registers transmit through the radio the leak detection, the continuous leak, intermittent leak. They transmit if there's been no flow, and for the quantity of time there's been no flow. So it'll measure 1 to 2 days, 7 to 10 days, and then it'll say 35 days plus. And it'll also send through the radio.
Does it do that automatically, or do you set it up to do that?
It does that automatically.
Because if this is an irrigation meter, they may not water from October till...
Correct. Yep, so you would expect to see no flow in those situations, yeah. Yep. And again, you're gonna get your 8-digit reading through the radio on those registers. Okay, so we're gonna talk a little bit about transmission devices. What this is, it's an R900 radio. And it transmits an RF signal that contains the read, the leak detection, the no flow, and the reverse flow. Now it transmits every 14 seconds to be collected mobily. So that means when somebody's driving around town, these are transmitting, and the handhelds would hear the read, take it in. It also transmits a 1 watt signal every 7.5 minutes. That's looking for a collector, which would be positioned around town. Now, I don't see that as a cost feasible option for you guys at this point, and I wouldn't recommend that. If it ever came down to you guys in the water department ever combining or getting together, that might be something that you would look at because it would become much more valuable at that point. So it's a 900 megahertz system, so it requires no FCC license. One of the really important things about this radio is there's absolutely no programming to it. So a lot of competitor products, you can program them to this mode, to that mode, if you wanted to read certain digits or fixed network or a mobile network. There's no programming. It's 3 wires, you hook them up, color coordinated, and it transmits, and it's transmitting both of those signals. So if the community of Lunenburg ever was combined and decided to do a fixed network, all you would have to do is install gateways. It wouldn't be changing any product that's in the field or reprogramming any product. One of the other important things about this unit in particular is Neptune really focuses on no assets left behind. This is a 20-year warranted product, so it's 10 full and 10 prorated. So this product came out in the later 90s as the original R900 version 1. That happens to be when Lunenburg Water District got involved. At the time, the product had a 5-year warranty. Lunenburg Water still has over 1,700 of these mobile units out there transmitting. So this is a field-proven battery. It transmits for the life. So those right now are going on almost 15 years past what their expected life was. The other important thing with Neptune in no asset left behind is everything's forward and reverse compatible, meaning that the handheld that came out in 1998 can read this radio. The handheld today can read the radio built in 1998. So if you talk to a lot of our competitors, they've end-of-life the system, they've forced people into different changes. I think if you ask the water department or ask some of your other neighbors that use Neptune about that feature, it saved them a lot of money over time because there hasn't been a need or a force from Neptune to say, okay, well, you've had that a long time, it's time for, things to change, and now only this works with this. And I think for communities right around here that you guys could talk to, Leominster's one, obviously Lunenburg Water, Westford's another one, Chelmsford, if all 3 of the water districts there. So this reads both Neptune and Census protocol. The reason that that's important is you guys have existing meters in the system now, as I understand it. And so some of those meters might not need to be replaced if you guys chose. It would be a wire-up compatibility. And I know there's some Neptunes out there hooked up to digi-reads on the side of the house where the guys are walking up and reading them. So in that situation, you wouldn't need a new water meter, you would just need to wire a radio to it. And that is, again, not just Neptune's brand. Whichever meter is out there, it's a possibility that it could be compatible with this radio.
Just along that line, because that could be important, do we know what's in the houses? Can we?
No, we don't. So that's, I was wondering how we would
Well,
determine.
my meter is, I honestly don't remember the brand, that it's sending a signal to a digital meter outside the house, which someone has to come by and read.
Yep.
It would be nice if I didn't have to replace the actual meter.
Yeah, for sure. So that possibility's there. It's also possible to retrofit bodies out there. So if you have a T10 body, you could retrofit it to a new register. There's a possibility that you could have a direct read that wasn't built with terminals to send to a radio. Those are also retrofittable to the new register heads. So I'm gonna flip one more page. And so I'm gonna The other two things that you noticed about these two registers here is one has a box off the side of it, and the other one doesn't. So this register right here has 3 terminal screws. Those screws are to wire these 3 wires to. This register head right here has an integrated radio built into it. So it's a very easy installation, and you don't have to drill through the home. There are positives and negatives to both of these applications. This is obviously a very easy, clean installation. So people with finished basements or areas that you can't possibly drill through the home or don't want to, you don't have to. Any signal, whatever it is, if it's RF, if it's cellular, if it's a LoRa network, anytime they're going to be in a home, they're going through a wall, they're going through concrete, there's going to be signal degradation. So it transmits about 25%, so it transmits about 75% as far. You lose about 25% of your distance having radios that are integrated into the meters. But it's also, it's a field-proven product, and there's a lot of departments that opt for that for those reasons. And again, these radios right here do the exact same things. So you could have all your old meters retrofitted with this radio and all new installations with this. There's no difference to the system. They just hear them as an R900 RF signal. So the next thing I want to talk about is cellular MIUs. I wouldn't propose that system here. There's a few different reasons. Neptune has a philosophy on cellular MIUs that they're great for when you're supplementing a fixed network. So if you have collectors around town and you're missing 20, and it takes 3 collectors to read those 20, well, in that case, we'd look at cellular MIUs. But for a full system deployment, we don't feel it becomes advantageous to the customer. For one, you're locked into a 10-year agreement with Verizon and AT&T. We love to pretend that they care about us, but with the speed of technology, I don't think that they do. And in the past few years, we know that 2G and 3G will be ended by 2019. And those are products we lived with for a long time. 4G LTE is the current up-to-date technology, but we already know that they're building 5G networks out there. And so how long are these going to stay, and do they actually care to keep them in place? We don't know. So the situation you come to is you take a 20-year product, and now you're down to a 10. And not only are you down to a 10, but you're down to a more expensive product in terms of the product requires a subscription to Verizon or AT&T. So you're either paying a monthly cost or you're paying a fixed cost up front. Whichever way, it's not comparable to our RF devices. I skipped one important step. So both of these units right here, within the radio, they record 96 days of hourly data. So if there's ever a question, a problem, somebody calls and says, I have this crazy high bill, what's going on? Your field technician's able to go and, without getting in the home, from anywhere from 700 to 1,000 feet away, send a signal to this radio, and the radio will transmit back 96 days of hourly data. You can then analyze that data and say, okay, well, the flow is never stopping. So for 24 hours, we're seeing that you're using a consistent gallons per minute, and, is there a reason for that or not? So it gives you, and also, I don't know how often you guys are doing abatements, but it reduces the need for any type of abatement in that situation. It becomes especially important in irrigation meters because second to toilets, they're the most common leak, is the irrigation system. I don't know what your guys' experience has been with that, but it is a very helpful tool for our departments whenever there is an issue investigating and handling those customer complaints. So the next thing I'm gonna get to is our belt clip and handheld. These two devices Bluetooth to each other. This device is a transceiver, meaning it can send a signal as well as receive a signal. So when the guys are in the field going out for their quarterly reads, as they're driving by, the reads come in and they display on the handheld. Neptune has very good signal strength. The 100 milliwatt mobile signal is actually 10 times the power of, let's say, a Badger system, for example. So your signal strength transmits much further, allowing less driveways to drive down, and, you know, typically, it depends. If you have really long driveways, yeah, but we're talking 1,500 to 2,500 to, at some points, we're looking at half a mile line of sight if you're up on a hill. So there's some serious signal strength there. Again, RF is variable. If you park the Brinks truck in front of the radio, there's going to be some signal degradation there. So these devices are what the guys would use in the field. So basically, Barbara would take a transfer file from Munis. She would load it into the Neptune software. This handheld sits in a cradle. The cradle would then, she would then, from the Neptune software, load the handheld, and the guys could go out and throughout their day, read the meters. If you send them out to directly read every meter right then, you can do that. It's, and then when they bring the reads back, you would put this back in the cradle, they would go back in the Neptune, back into Munis. Now, currently, you guys are on a very updated version of Munis, Barb let me know, and it would be fully compatible with the Neptune software. So that is a built-in transfer file. And it's something that we help with too. So part of our implementation is Peter Elwell, the service specialist, comes and sits with Barb and says, let's call Munis and ask for what we need. And, you know, it's not, hey Barb, can you try to speak this language that you may or most likely don't know, because I don't know that, the computer side of the language as well as Peter does. That's his only focus.
So just to be clear, so it's great it interfaces with Munis, so there'd be no additional charges from Munis for any interfaces or software or anything?
I don't believe so in your version. I mean, Munis is a fickle company. They tend to nickel and dime here and there, so there's a couple things we could do. Peter could sit with you, and it's possible the file is right there in the drop-down menu. Where you guys are on the latest version, I'm thinking that it is, but we would verify that, and we can do that anytime you guys want. Peter can actually either team viewer in, or you can come right down and sit with Barb and grab a transfer file and try loading it on his computer to make sure that it works. So, the other thing that this belt clip transceiver does is it Bluetooths to an app. So that app can either be located on a tablet or a phone. And what that allows guys to do is when they're installing or when they're either doing a final read or doing any troubleshooting in the system, they just need this belt clip in their phone, or they need the belt clip in a tablet, or they could bring these two devices if they want. The app is a free app. If you want to do data logging on the app, you can. It's an extra $10. It's a one-time purchase. The data log, the only thing that's nice about having the data logging feature on the app is if Barb says, you know, I got 3 people we need to take a look at, their bill seems to be much higher, or they've called and complained, you can send the guys into the field to do the data logging, which takes about 3 to 4 minutes per meter. And then right from their phone or tablet, they could either email that to Barb, they could email that to the commission if they wanted to see it. They wouldn't have to bring it back and unload it. It's directly shareable as long as you have an internet connection. So some people use that stuff a lot, some people don't, but it is probably optimal for the guys in the field when they're going out and doing, again, their final reads, their troubleshooting, or their data logging. This next option you see would be a truck-mounted unit. It's our MRX. It's basically the Cadillac of mobile units. It comes with a mapping software. It reads an outrageous amount of reads per minute, and I actually wouldn't recommend you guys start with this product. Considering the amount of meters that you guys have, I think you could accomplish everything you're looking to do with these two things. But knowing that it's there, the Neptune has that technology, if it's ever becomes a situation where all of a sudden you guys have 1,000 irrigation meters, and that's something you want to look into. Again, with all the different reading equipment, there's only one radio, so there's only one signal it's looking for, and there's no programming changes. It's an almost identical way to read. So our Insight software is, it would be located on your computer, Barb. So this isn't a cloud-based software. It is locally hosted. The important thing about that is there's a one-time charge there. So you buy the software. We have a maintenance fee that comes. It's $700 for maintenance. I have customers that buy the maintenance, and I have customers that don't. And that's your option. And you always have the option to buy the maintenance anytime you want to as well. So the times that we see people where it's really important to upgrade, and again, Tie Sales and Neptune really focus on not forcing you guys to do anything that you don't want to do. The only time that it becomes a situation like that is when Windows decides to break the connection. So at that point, you would probably need to purchase maintenance to get a fix instead of purchasing. We allow you to do that instead of purchasing new software. So that cost could come into play. The software allows you to generate reports. So every time that the guys come in with meter reads, Barb can pull a report, again, looking for either no read situations where somebody might have sided their house and the connection to the radio is broken, a situation where there's possibly a faulty product out there. She can run reports on the leak detection in terms of continuous leak or intermittent leak, separate reporting, the no-flow reports, and the reverse flow reports. So at that time, it allows you to break the data down. If you have any of those situations, you can then either generate a work order to one of the guys or make some phone calls, depending on how you guys choose to handle things. So again, the way that the software works is it takes a transfer file from Munis containing all your account information, correlated with an MIU ID, it's a 10-digit ID on any of these radios, puts it into Neptune. Neptune then goes out and looks for those specific IDs. So it's only going to be looking for the 85 or 90 IDs that you guys would have in the system. And when it comes back, it would go into the Neptune software and then back into Munis for billing. Do you have any questions on the software, Barb? I know it would be you that would be using it.
No. I think Munis would probably charge you to get it up and running. I don't.
So we have a one-time implementation fee. It's we charge $1,000 for that. It's a relatively nominal fee. One of the reasons that we consider a nominal fee is you'll find that a lot of other systems will charge for support. If you guys partner with Tie Sales, it is support for life of the system at no charge. So what that means is you have access to Peter Elwell, you have access to me, you have access to Tie Sales and Neptune for whatever issues that you have that we don't charge by the hour, we don't charge a yearly support fee. It's on the phone, it's in person, quarterly reads, we know what's happening. We expect that, the first 3-4 times that Barb does this, wherever it is, because it's happening in that long of increments every 3 months, that you're gonna need somebody to say, okay, let me just go through this one more time and make sure I got it right. Yep, okay, good to go. The other thing that Tie Sales does is if any of your equipment goes down. So when is the worst time for the equipment to go down? It's when you need to get your meter reads to get your bills out. So Ty Sales has a free loaner program. So it's next day delivery of equipment ready to read your system. So we make sure that it's the same software already on the handhelds and reading device that you guys are using. It's next day shipped by 10 o'clock to you guys by 10 o'clock the next morning. And it allows you guys to get right up and running. And at that point, it might be a phone call with Peter. Yep, okay, we got this new equipment. It's here, everything's loaded, and we get you out and running. And at that point, we'll take a look at whatever's going on with your other equipment, but you guys are in position to get your bills out. And you're not waiting for something to come from Neptune or something to come from anywhere else. And to give you an idea, we have about 75 devices that we keep at the office, and just in case these situations happen. It's not often that they're going out all the time, but we keep all makes and styles just so that whatever that person was comfortable and familiar with is what that person is getting. It makes it a lot easier for them, and in return, it makes it a lot easier for me and Peter. So the other thing is Neptune has a Connected Utility Partnership Program, meaning that we have APIs, application program interfaces, that are able to connect with a lot of other programs out there. So if you guys were ever going to look at any type of mapping, any type of asset management software, any type of portal software, we have the ability to integrate with the majority of the players in the market. And that might not be something that ever happens for you guys, but it's certainly a feature that you never know what's coming down the road these days. Technology is ever changing. So do you guys have any questions for me at this point?
Well, I just wonder, the wiring up the current meters, and I don't know, would that be part of the implementation charge to have someone from Ty Sales go out and see if we've got meters that are compatible with that? Or how would that be?
You know, Barb, if we had, I think that what might be more helpful to you guys would be if I put together a sheet of registers, right? Pictures of the actual registers that might be in place. We keep a pretty extensive history of everything that's ever existed out there and what this can connect to. And so that your guys would know in the field, I'd be more than happy to go with them the first few times. For 85 appointments, I see that taking probably 9 or 10 days of time, and especially if you're able to schedule them all, 7 or 8 a day. But I would be more than happy to go out with the guys as long as it takes till they feel fully comfortable. And that's a no charge thing. That would be with the implementation. So when you're looking at metering, becomes a partnership because it's a significant investment. So you have to feel really comfortable with the company that you're going into this partnership with, because if they're forever changing and leaving assets stranded, that means you might be part of those assets at some point. So Ty Sales, again, is a no asset left behind, forward and reverse compatible company. We have the ability to service you with Peter Elwell, myself, and that happens again the 3 ways. It's either on the phone, through the computer, or in person. And trust me, if Peter can get here in person, that's his favorite method. So it's worked out really well. And luckily, he lives not too far away. It's about 45 minutes. So. We offer, one system here. It's not a if this or that. This is the system we offer. It's the R900 system, and there's no programming, and there's no mode changes or anything like that with this system. It's a plug and play. They make it like that because we want it to be simple, stupid. We want it to be easy to use. Again, and it's next day delivery. Luckily, and you can talk to Lunenburg Water about this, anywhere in my territory, because we're so close to Sudbury, anything that's ordered, that gets delivered the next day. We have a deal with UPS where we're their last stop at 5 o'clock. So anything that you order up to 5 o'clock will be here the following day. And again, we carry that $2 to $3 million in inventory, and it's not often that we have to back order anything.
So currently, the water department drives around now with this.
So they actually use a version of that handheld that's probably from the early 2000s.
So we'd have to do the same. We'd have to implement someone to
Yep.
drive around.
Yep, so it's a drive-by system. And I don't see going to a fixed network, and, there are some great things about fixed networks, but, so right now you guys are going from reading 85 meters quarterly. So that's 4 times a year. You're looking at about 340 reads or so a year. Now you're looking at, 85 reads per hour, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. That's an awful lot of data, and it is very useful in certain situations. I personally, and you can talk to the water department about how long it takes them to read their meters. I think right now they're somewhere in the 2 to 3 hour range, and they've got 25 or 800. I don't see the cost feasibility being there to make it worth it for you guys. And, if it's something that you really wanted, it's an option we could look at, but again, unless you were combined with water and we saw an asset for the town and everyone, it doesn't, and we've considered it over at the water department too, and they're able to read so fast that they don't see the value in it. The other thing that I see systems do is, because the drive-by works so well, that once they have the system fully implemented, they go through them, they say, okay, yeah, let's bill quarterly, but let's go out and read monthly, and we'll just pull reporting data from it. So, they know what went through those meters on a monthly basis, and they know if there's any sort of intermittent leak or continuous leak, and they can run the reports and either alert those customers if they so choose. And that is the way that I see people really optimize a mobile system.
So you just made me think, so is there going to be any confusion? We're going to drive around the same places that the water department is, and there's meters all over town. Are we going to be collecting data from all the meters and have to sort it out, or how's that work?
So when you enter into Munis and you're entering a meter into the system, it's going to ask you for an MIU ID. So it's going to associate that 10-digit ID. So when you load this handheld, even though it might be able to hear those other meters, it's only going to read the 85 you asked it to. And again, if there was ever, I don't know that the town looked at this at one point or another, and I don't know whatever ended up happening, but if there was ever an integration, the system would be there to read all at once.
So it'd just be 2 meters per an address or something? And
Which is very common with anyone who runs irrigation meters, or some people call them irrigation, some people call them deduct. It's all about how they're plumbed.
What's a common failure for a part that would need to be shipped out the next day? Is there common things that break pretty easily, or what are the most common ones?
No, we stock so much inventory that when people, what it allows departments to do that are maybe in implementation or in a regimented meter change is they don't have to inventory the stuff. So basically, you're gonna have, if you've got so many appointments next week, you can order them today and they're gonna be here tomorrow. So you're not carrying old inventory, so that's one of the reasons. And in terms of the system, no. And I think the water department would have to agree with that, and please feel free to talk to your neighbors. It's, the only other thing that would be very important about the next day shipping is if you had a piece of reading equipment go down.
And you had provided a quote back in January or whatever, and I think I sent it out to everybody. Has that changed?
Yeah,
Take it a look, yeah.
Got lower?
did change.
Quotes go down, right?
It did change. So I actually changed one piece of the equipment on there, Barb.
Okay,
And I went from a Ranger, and I went to the Nomad and Belt Clip. And one of the reasons I did that is this is gonna provide you a lot more versatility in the future.
So we need to request a new quote, or?
Yeah, and I can actually tell you offhand, the price difference between that quote and the new quote is $500 difference. So the actual cost of the handheld equipment went down, with a price increase as of May 1st, the price of the software went up.
and is there a cost yearly?
So the only yearly cost would be if you choose to buy maintenance on your equipment.
Okay.
And again, we talked about the software, I believe that's the $765 on that quote.
Is that quote in our package?
Yes, it should, thank you. Look like that. Maybe under a irrigation header, or the meter, irrigation meter.
So, yeah, it's a little under $500 difference. The other thing that you guys can see from this quote is we added tail pieces in here, and I think at the time when we originally did the quote, I didn't know if you guys had meters installed or you were installing all new meters. So that last item there of the 81, I'm sorry, the 162 swivel nut tail pieces, you probably wouldn't need those if, only in new installations would those ever be required. And you guys might require the plumber to install those, or that might be a onus on the homeowner rather than the commission, or the DPW. Public Works, Public Works?
Swivel nuts you're talking about?
The swivel nut, so that last line item there, that's 2532. So that could probably be eliminated.
So with these meter interface unit costs?
So the meter interface unit is this, so the R900 would stay. The only other time, so right here we have 81 meters built into this. I think that's what we looked at the time. And that cost, the 81 meters, again, how many of them you would need if these can be retrofitted to the existing meters, we don't know. So it's a possibility that you guys might need 79 of them, or you might need only 40.
Right.
But I would have to guess, how long have you guys been doing irrigation meters?
Pretty much from, we started, Jack, pretty much at the beginning.
Almost from the inception.
Yeah, at least 2010, so I would say.
Oh, so,
Or even before that, what am I thinking? No. Yeah, 2004, 2005.
okay, so if they are that recent, there's a high probability that a lot of them would be compatible. Or the possibility is they might only need a register head upgrade to be compatible. So,
Okay, and is that a plumber's cost or is that from tie sales?
it depends how you guys are working things, but so the register head cost would be from us. Your technicians are more than capable than changing the register heads. It would be a cost from us if it's one of our registers. If it's a competitor's register and it's not compatible, you might actually just be able to buy a register from them that is compatible to 3-wire.
Yeah. We don't have any technicians necessarily. We have just our subs that will go out and read. Other than that, it's the responsibility of the homeowner for the meters, so
Yep.
I'm pretty sure we'd be involving the plumbers to,
Okay. So that might be I would be more than happy to go out with, somebody that you use, or again, we could provide a list of compatible material.
Jack, can I see that quote for a second? Sorry.
A number of these are not irrigation meters, they're just meters, right?
correct, yeah.
Roughly how many?
About 30,
About 30?
Yeah.
And were they all the same time, so would they be all the same? Or
they've been replaced.
Yeah.
many times over many years.
I'm trying to think of how to get out of this easily. How do we figure out what's out there and what to do about it?
So is there the possibility, no serial numbers? Probably not.
Not that we have on file.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been the responsibility of the homeowners to install them. So it's,
Could we ask the homeowners to just send us a picture of what they have, and then we just get a picture? We can see if any of them are the same, or how many.
If that's possible, if it's possible to get, they request a picture of them, I could identify compatibility.
I mean, nowadays, it's so easy.
Anytime.
To send a picture, it's not like a big deal.
but yeah, those last 30 would be under trailers. So it would be, somebody else would probably go down. Do that.
So when you guys did this, did you give out, was it just a plumber that went there and installed them, and the plumber?
Homeowner took care of it. We have no idea.
Okay, so-
Plumbers purchased the meters and installed them.
Yep, okay. I mean, I know I can probably account for 3 or 4 in the past couple of years, well, probably maybe even a little bit more than that.
You can't wire irrigation meters to the existing Neptune boxes from the water department, can you?
No.
So you have to have two of these R900s, unless you get that radio meter there?
Correct. Yep,
So if you get the radio meter, you wouldn't actually need the box, right?
correct. So currently, these are priced as, on here, as these 2 options. Now, we have this register head in this style. It's not much of a price difference, but it is a little bit more expensive, just a little bit more expensive to manufacture that way.
But would it eliminate the need to buy a bunch of new boxes?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the box is integrated, so you're still paying for it. It wouldn't change your cost much.
Change that?
The only thing that would really change your cost is if you have a lot of compatible meters. So, who reads your meters now?
Excuse me?
Who reads your meters now?
Our subs, small water.
Okay. And are a lot of those on digi-reads, where I know most of the meters that I've sold to date are wired to a device that they go and push the button on.
Tap to read. And it has to have an external reader.
So, in that case, the majority of your meters would be compatible to radio.
Good to know.
Because if they have those 3 terminals, there's only a couple registers out there that were manufactured since 2004 that we can't read. The industry standard, we can. So that means, basically, to give you guys an idea, the 3 leading manufacturers in the industry are Neptune, Badger, and Sensus. Most of them operate under Sensus protocol, and again, it's like 2 different languages. Neptune's radio interprets all of them. So, there's 2 specific registers out there, and I could get into it right now, but I don't think it would be helpful.
So if it is compatible, what would the homeowner need to buy anything, or?
Yeah, the box.
So basically, this box. Yeah, and then, it would just wire to these 3 terminals here. And it would, this box usually has a couple stickers on it, with the MIU ID. And those stickers would probably have to go on some sort of work order to Barb, just to say what it is. If you guys were gonna have small water systems, go out and do it, or, and sub it out that way, depending on how you guys go about this. If that is the situation at the time, I would encourage them to just take a picture of whatever's there, because I believe you can attach that to the Munis file, and then you would know forever.
So if I understand it correctly, there's a number of different scenarios. They might have something that needs a new register and a box, or they might have something that just needs a box.
Correct. And now that
They might have something that's non-compatible that needs everything.
that's correct.
So we have 3 different possibilities.
And where most things were after 2004 and capable of digi-read, that I would be inclined to say most of them are compatible to the box. Unless we hit 70 of that one register,
Could be.
which is a possibility.
Are pretty old.
But if you wanted to do some investigating, Barb, I would be more than happy to go out and at least let you guys know at a sample size of what we're looking at. And the other thing to note is if you guys already have those 3 wires outside the house, well, you would have to know what the register is, so, yeah. They would need to run the wire though. They could actually just, you crimp these 3 wires to those existing wires, and there would be no need to drill any new holes. It would just be a mounting plate to the side of the house.
That could be a huge time saver, because lines, meters on one side of the house in the basement, and that's over on the other side, outside.
Yeah.
So they need to go in only just to get the serial, the actual.
I would, you know, if you're gonna have to have contact with the customer and make an appointment as it is, then I would think it's worth the time for you guys to take the opportunity to record the information. It helps future-proof yourself. It helps, you know, when you're doing anything like this in the future, you'd be able to dial it up, and if you're gonna be there, it's probably the time to grab the information.
Okay.
Anybody else?
So, thank you.
If you guys have any questions, I know water meters aren't probably on your everyday topics of discussion, so if you guys think of things today, tomorrow, the next day, my card is in all those packets, so feel free to call or email me. And Barb, I will email you a copy of the updated quote. if that-
Here's the other one.
Thank you.
And if there's anything else that you guys decide in your discussions, you know, hey, we'd really want these, then we can provide a price on what the difference is from those two.
Good to know. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for your time, guys, really appreciate it.
Time you got? What time? It's project here.
No, Dan Proctor is 8:30. No, I'm not sure. He's coming, but I haven't heard.
Thank God for air conditioning, huh? Have a good night.
Good night, thanks a lot.
Did you do public comment yet? Nope. All right, let's go right to public comment, and we'll wait when Dan comes in. Any public comment from the board? Public comment from the public? Well, that was easy. Done. Election of,
May I just
I already said done, so.
I just want to, this is the first televised meeting since Troy left, and I just want to thank him for his service.
Oh, we didn't do that either? Okay, sorry. We didn't do the town election results either? Oh, well.
Oh, no,
Did we introduce?
Yes.
Ryan? Okay.
We didn't do the election of officers.
We didn't do that part yet,
Yeah, we
okay.
waited for you because we
No, I know.
should.
No, I know that part. There's a thing up here that was a different line. Okay, yes. Thank you, Troy, for the past year and bringing a lot of knowledge to the table and critical thinking and challenging us on certain things. And is your mic not working? It's gonna be a fast meeting.
I'll speak up.
Okay, all right, we'll do the election of officers. So after every election, we do this. Currently, I'm the chair. Vice chair is currently Carl Luck, and currently the clerk is Joan. I forget how we did this last year. We just shout out nominations, basically.
I think we took nominations for chair.
All right, we'll do the nominations for chair first.
Put Joe's name into nomination for chair again for next year, for this year.
I'd second that.
All right.
That's the process here, not even.
Is that a motion? There's a motion to nominate and seconded. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor of me remaining chair?
Aye.
I don't know if I'm supposed to vote, but I too.
Sure you are.
Vice chair? Nominations for vice chair.
I would nominate Joan Pease for vice chair.
Joe, let's take vice chair. Second, anybody?
Sure, second.
All right, discussion? My only discussion being that I would like to keep Carl as vice chair, nothing against you, Joan, personally.
The the process is you take nominations, and then once you have all the nominations, then you,
Oh, is that what it is? So then I nominate Carl Luck for vice chair. I don't know if you're allowed to second your own
I'd
nomination.
second. Yeah,
You can, right?
I think I can.
Yeah. Did you second it? Did you second it?
Yes.
Oh, you did second it, okay. Any other nominations for vice chair? Okay. All in favor of Joan?
Discussion?
Oh, sorry, further discussion, sorry, go ahead, discussion on,
I think Carl did a fine job, and I think that we should follow the model set by the selectmen and rotate. I don't, it's not a giant responsibility, but if we rotate, we get various perspectives. If we keep it the same all the time, even though you're really good at something, sometimes you don't see all the different angles and perspectives. And so I would hope that we would continually rotate the positions. Carl's been an officer for either the chair or vice chair for how many years, Carl? Long time. And I just think it would be, and I think that if I were the vice chair, I would think in a few years, I would say, okay, it's time for somebody else to do that, and we get all the perspectives moved around. So that would be my only discussion.
I don't disagree that rotation's good. The only reason is I just won the chair again, well, I don't know if one is the right, but now that I'm chair again, obviously, there's a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff with agenda setting and running meetings and things like that, that I really valued and appreciated Carl being there as the vice chair. Obviously, I chaired, last year was the first year chairing. So I don't disagree that change is good, and I don't think you would be bad at it. I really liked the experience that Carl brought to the table. That's why I nominated Carl for vice chair.
Yeah, I appreciate the comment, and I think it is important to get new people and get new ideas.
Yeah, I just think it's good to move it around a little, and I enjoyed being clerk, and I think,
wasn't
somebody else should have a turn being clerk.
Oh, you weren't done?
No.
I wasn't done with his comment. Sorry.
I agree with the rotating, but I've only been vice chair for 1 year.
1 year.
And I'd like to do that one more time to support Joe when he took this office. I said I would help with the year's experience I have that you bring up, Joe, and I'd like to do that for this one more year.
I would like that too. But any other comments? So I just list it off and we just vote?
Yeah, I think you vote on the first nomination first.
Okay, so all in favor of Joan Pease being vice chair?
For myself.
Yeah, you can. That's two. I said, obviously I said nay. I don't know if we're supposed to say nay or not, but,
I don't think you need to.
okay. And all in favor of Carl being vice chair? Aye.
Aye.
So that's 3 for Carl. Carl's vice chair. And clerk. Nominations for clerk. Wait,
I nominate John for clerk.
I'll second it. I'll second John. Any other nominations for clerk? Any discussion? All in favor of John? Aye.
Aye.
So John is now clerk. Okay. Dan, hook one up.
Good evening.
How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Kind of an informal, just questions, process, interpretations, what have you. As you know, when I installed my car wash, per the request of the sewer, because of the existing sewer line and how I was gonna tie my car wash into that existing sewer line, you made me combine the lots, if you remember that correctly. Moving forward, going to phase 2 of my process with the car wash and moving of my existing office building that houses the excavating division. I'm looking to create 3 lots, if possible. If I was to do that, the existing sewer line, which now runs in this direction to my sewer easement in the back, services the red building, services the car wash. The only way to create 3 lots without an easement, I would have to put a manhole someplace here, run a diagonal to another manhole, to another manhole, and then to the existing sewer line. I'm here in front of the board tonight to find out if it's possible to get an easement for the sewer line that will service the car wash to go through the property that's gonna now service my office building, because my office building is gonna get moved somewhere in this general area. I know the easement sewer line kind of is so that we're not creating lots, you know, running over hill, over dale, that type of thing. I think that's the intent of that bylaw, but I'm here to ask the board for kind of an explanation, interpretation, what have you, before I get my engineer spending my money.
It's fair. We know what bylaw first, we know what that bylaw for the easements.
So ultimately, what's gonna happen is this building is gonna get moved someplace in this area. This is my sewer line now. So what would happen is the sewer line for my car wash, which will be lot number 1, would have to have an easement to go through lot number 2. Just because the property line's gonna be created like that. So right now, it comes from this manhole here that way, and that one, well, this one would be discontinued because...
Why wouldn't we put it right in?
Right, so
There's
this...
a main right here, right?
That's correct. So this would stay right here, and this would tie in right here. But again, I would need an easement, my car wash would need an easement onto Lot 2 if I was to create it that way.
So the bylaw as it states right now says, was it the...
Yeah, Mr. Chair, you asked for whatever I can remember of history,
Yeah.
which is fading. There was a lot of discussion about not allowing sewer connections over easements because it can be abused. It was a very emotional, not emotional, but a very hard conversation. It involved council, and there were some cases where it became extremely important in terms of protecting the town from situations that they didn't want and weren't consistent with the comprehensive wastewater plan. For instance, I think one of them related to a 40B project, which was that would able to bring sewer outside of the sewer service area. So it's a very complex problem. I would suggest that we do some homework, that we don't make any decisions tonight. We take the request of the applicant in mind and then go back and revisit some of the reasons behind it. Talk to council about our ability to change it, or if we would need to change the regulation, or what that would open us up to.
Can you just, do you know which regulation it was, just so I can look it up? Was it in the... It was that big thing I have.
Yeah, it's in there.
It's the one of the bylaws.
Yes.
It's not.
Oh, it's one of the, I see what you're saying.
It's a
You're saying
bylaw, right?
it's a bylaw in that document.
Is there something unique about this particular project that all the properties are owned by one person?
Probably. I think what the best way to...
We could look into. I just know it's such a key precedent and a key building block of, how we're controlling sewer, that it's something we should not take casually at all.
We're also
And
not a
especially, this one is
precedent-setting
kind of
board,
tough
so
because...
we can do different things.
As the applicant said, the reason we did this to begin with was based on combining the lots. That we wouldn't have allowed it if the lots weren't combined. We would not have allowed it through an easement. And so now, the ink is barely dry, and we're trying to undo the one condition that we had to allow it to begin with. So we need to do an awful lot of homework on this. This is a very serious request.
Is there a formal request process for something like this? Like, maybe formulate something?
Yeah, and I mean,
Have some stuff like that.
obviously, I will show option A and option B on the
Yeah,
plan.
can you do that? And in parallel, we can kind of do some homework and see what the options are. So we can't give you a yes or no tonight, but obviously...
Yeah, no, and I understand that. Again, I can do it through zoning. I can create a lot that would allow the sewer to go this way, this way, this way, and still get to the pipe.
No, I don't
I
doubt
just
that.
don't think that's in the best interest to have 3 manholes
Yeah.
going 4 different directions.
Put together like a like you said, a couple different options, things like that. We can also kind of look at the bylaws and maybe talk to council about what options are within those bylaws, if there are, you know, how to get around things or how to allow things like that, if possible. And obviously, we'll do homework too, to your point, where we combine them to allow the car wash in the first place, and then, you know, we'll have to formulate something, and you'll have to probably come back and we'll talk about it more.
Okay.
I assume tonight was just to kind of bring it to our attention, to
That's correct.
get the ball rolling.
Yep.
Okay, so why don't we, when you have time, do that, send it off to Bob, and we'll keep it on the agenda to keep the discussion going.
Okay.
And obviously, you have the option to make an appointment if you want, or just come and talk about it with us.
Okay.
And we'll go from there, probably.
Sounds good.
That work for everybody?
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything you want to add? All right,
Yeah.
we'll go from there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, hold on a second. Okay, DPW systems updates?
I'd just like to run one number by you. For that I&I remediation, the manhole remediation, the engineer's estimate was 18,000 and change. We solicited 3 bids. We got 2 back. Low bid is 13,700. I'd like to look at that. I'd like to award it, but with the caveat of the work being done seasonal. You know, is this the right time to do it? There's one school of thought that says the water table should be higher. There's another school of thought that says the water table should be lower so that the work can be more effective. If that's the case, we would need a second inspection to make sure it worked. I mean, it's great to do the repair with the water table down. You might be able to do a more effective repair, actually, but it's like putting air in a tire and then putting it in the trunk, you know, you don't really know if it's going to work. But we passed the procurement muster, and you've certainly seen the scope of work for some time, so I'd like to go with it. There are 2 companies, Inland Water Supply Company and Water Main Cleaning, Inc. And they both bid it at $48 a vertical foot. So with the footage being calculated by the consultant, it's the exact same price. It's now a matter of, it's now a matter of just moving forward, speaking with these people, making sure we get what we're paying for, and that it's tested under high water table, or we encumber the funds and go do it, and then have the water table come up. It's a different way to do that. I'd like to speak to the consultant on that. I'd like to get that under our belt, start moving forward on that.
Okay, it's the same price on both.
There was a third, he was non-responsive.
Okay, right. So how do you do that when the quotes are the exact same? You just talk to them and see who, so when the quotes are the exact same, you can go with either one, right?
Either one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did ask them both today who was available to move forward more quickly. And
base your choice off of.
Yeah, the waste, the Water Main Cleaning, Inc. Actually got back to me, the other fellow didn't.
Can you just do a vote to approve the 13.7?
I just have a question first. There were a number of questions on the RFP, and have they all been brought to the attention of Weston Sampson and the contractor? Is there some related to documentation and warranties and things like that?
I think the last time I brought the scope of work to you, it was questioned by the commission. I think Pat was here. I don't know that there are any outstanding questions that haven't been answered.
At the last,
This was actually weeks or months ago.
yeah, a few months ago, we had a
a discussion here where
Yep.
we had the quote, and I asked if the questions had been answered. Weston Sampson was not here at the time, and what you indicated at the time was that Weston Sampson was not willing to answer those questions without a change of scope to
Right,
the
right.
contract.
That's
So-
right.
So they were never answered.
That's right.
But they still remain out there, and I just want to make sure that when we're done, that this contractor understands, because there's documentation. For instance, one of the confusing things in the RFP was whether the documentation was photos or video, because both things were mentioned in the RFP.
Yeah, oh, go ahead, I'm
Is that
sorry.
clear? Is that-
I'm sorry.
If that's clear, if
I know.
things are clear to the contractor and Weston Sampson, particularly the documentation and the warranty was very confusing, how they're gonna do the inspections and sampling and things like that. So I just want to make sure that those things are clear to the contractor, so that we don't get into it, and Weston Sampson, so we don't get into it and say, okay, where's the video? And everybody says, what video?
Well, I know that the scope of work that was put before you that evening was voted upon as is. So whatever that scope of work
did vote.
is or was, would be the scope of work that would be,
Joe, I think we did.
So do you
Overseen
know
by
if
the-
videos or photos required then, because the scope of work's not
We're
clear.
voting on something.
well, I think you brought these things up.
No, I didn't, because nobody wanted to discuss the questions, and the questions were never asked. They were,
But the commission did vote to move ahead with that scope of work.
yeah, and I'm just asking, what documentation are we going to get, videos or photographs?
Well, I don't have the scope of work in front of me. I thought we had spent enough months on the scope of work, and we were at the point of that,
Scope of work.
excuse me?
We didn't spend any time discussing the scope of work. I prepared a...
That's not true. We brought-
Absolutely true.
Okay, they voted 4-1 to accept the scope of work. If the commission was like to revisit the scope of work, that's certainly the pleasure of the commission.
Do that. Go ahead, Joan.
My memory is that we did talk somewhat about Carl's questions, and we did talk to Jack and Pat, and I believe eventually, I think John made the motion, and I seconded it, and you were there, and we voted to put it through the way it was. And I can get on the website and find the actual date, because we have to
No,
look at all the
that's
minutes.
exactly what happened. It was put through the way it was.
So the way it is how we're going to go with it.
But I'm saying...
Clarification.
I'm saying the scope of work, under documentation, has one statement that says videos of the work is required, and another statement, another part of it that says photographs are. And I just want to make sure, what are we going to get? So when we get to the end of this, we don't
Can you
start...
find out if we're getting
Sure.
photographs or videos?
Sure can.
I assume you just sent the scope of work as is, right?
That's the way it was voted. I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me, but I understand the question better now. That there's an inconsistency in the scope. Is that what you're saying, Carl?
In my reading it was, maybe it isn't if Weston Sampson says, well,
Yeah.
no, this,
Well, they
points
quote-
out, clarifies
Yeah.
it. They just need to be clarified, but it
So you want to know what they
wasn't clear to me.
quoted, what that 13.7
Almost get
entails?
delivered, that this contractors and Weston
Specifically if
Sampson
they're videos or
have
photos.
clear.
So that could swing some things if they come back with an answer that, well, we already voted on the scope of work.
Yeah, we already did.
So tonight, we're trying to approve.
Did you, yeah, it's
The 13
it's the pleasure of the commission. You
Just the amount.
you approve the amount.
I
we
make
can
a
still-
motion,
we
we
can still get
approve
the
the
answers.
13.
7?
I'll second.
There was 13, so can we amend this so it's $13,700?
$13,700.
Okay, you second it again, then? All right. So discussion being, so we're going to approve well, we might approve the 13.7, that's the vote. The question of the scope of work can still be posed, and we can still get an answer for it. I don't know if the scope of work is what is what it is.
I'm not questioning, or, the vote was taken, I wasn't happy with it, I voted against it, but that is what happened, and it is the scope of work. All I'm saying is that the sooner people understand, if there is a misunderstanding, then at least the contractor, Weston Sampson, should get clear what they think it is, because when this bill comes to get signed by us, I'm going to go look for the documentation, and I'm going to want to make sure that what work was
No,
done
you're
is
right,
consistent with the scope
we
of
should know
work.
whether it's photographs or video, but I think Jack can get an answer for us.
Inspection was another area that was a little confusing and concerned because they, how they're going to, I think Weston Sampson's going to do the inspection to validate and sign off on the warranty. There's some confusion in the scope of work regarding how they're going to do that, because they talk about a 50% sample, then they talk about 100%. It's just confusing, that's all I'm saying. When we get to the end of it, when we get to the end to sign off the invoice is not the time to be saying, well, where is...
I believe, Jack, that you also brought up the inspections, because you said you had to clarify whether if it was done in dry weather, there was going to be a second wet water inspection, right?
That's what I said this evening, right?
Yes, so we do need to get some clarification on inspection, not just on that, but on the number of inspections, and if it's done in dry season, then we need a wet inspection, so I think that we're already on that.
Any other discussion?
Nope.
All in favor of the 13,700?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Thanks.
a bunch of ayes. Let's see.
I have a question, Jack, before you leave. Last month, when we had Swiss's report, there was something in one of the Swiss reports that didn't have a follow-up. Do you remember that? There was some...
I remember you wanted to close the gap on everything, not just one particular thing.
But there was one particular thing in the last...
Did you find that in the report?
We talked about it at the last meeting.
Okay.
I have it right here. I'd have to pull it
Okay.
back up, but
You didn't feel the loop was closed?
it wasn't closed. Do you remember, who else was there last? John, you were there. Remember there was something in last month's Swiss report that said there was a problem, and then we didn't get the loop closed on it?
Yes, I didn't find that.
Okay, we can get that.
But there
Well,
was something in last month's that was the loop. Barb, do you have it?
We have it. West Street fallout, pump number 1 pulling high amps and tripping out, called Al to go out and diagnose. But then
Right.
3-6 that pulled pump at West Street found rags, socks in it, removed debris and reinstalled, tested in hand, put in back in auto, in working. So maybe, I don't know. But that's the only one that had an open-ended,
I just was wondering, because we had an open-ended one, I just would like to see the loop closed so we know what's going on.
Understood.
if it was the March report, and I think it was.
It was the March report. There was
Oh,
one.
the April report. The April report didn't say anything, right? The April report?
No, because I think it was actually satisfied on...
Because they fixed it, right? It's not a problem anymore, though, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, that's, right.
Because it's not showing on the April report as a problem.
Yeah, but I think Joan's point is well taken, and they seem to be having some difficulty with this very small point, that, yes, the work's being done, but Joan and all would like to have in the next report that, yes, this, what was noted in the previous report has been completed successfully. Is that fair enough?
Repaired, replaced.
Yeah.
Isn't that what you just read, though?
Yeah. I believe
Yeah, so they did put it in there, that they replaced it, they pulled it, they fixed it. and
Well, that's the thing about the sock, right?
Yeah, so they didn't report that it was
Is that the
fixed.
same one, Barb? I don't think that was the same
Do you
one.
want to reach out and
because I
clarify with them?
remember-
Just to clear it up, because so we can have a resolution on that, make sure it's all good.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Swiss parts list? Do we have
Yeah, we,
do progress on it or anything, or updates? Or?
they're putting it together. When we look at those flight pumps, and the reason why we purchased them ahead of time is because they take so long to get.
Yep.
Well, they're in the process of going through that so long to get.
Okay, so
So it's not,
moving, but
they're not billing
slow
us,
as it would
obviously,
be.
yeah. Slow as it would be if, you
Yep.
know, to keep them in stock.
And then, we have April report on here.
Yep,
Everybody look at the April report?
yep.
Any questions on the April report?
No.
Good, everybody good? Year-end spending? Let's see.
Just my...
FY 18
point
spending
being
through-
about We have encumbered monies for the parts and for the task one and all that, but we have about 12,000 for infrastructure.
Beyond the encumbrance? And we haven't encumbered task one
No,
yet.
no, but that's,
But you and I have spoken about that, and that's where we are. So we haven't, we're 12,000 to the good.
right, and we want to...
I think we'll get three. I think we'll get three, and this is something we would want to do in dry weather. we'll get three prices to repair the drop manhole on John Street, which is no longer leaking, I would expect with the drop in the water table, but that's not one that we would want to do under the pressure of the water.
That, I also took that into account.
And if we could, yeah, we had it figured, so still, what you're saying is even with that figured, you're carrying $12,000.
But I want to get jetting, hopefully.
You want to get jetting.
We talked about every, 6 months, and we're due. And that's the only thing I have.
Okay. Yeah, well, I think it's better than looking for $12,000 in June. Right?
I think that's all we have.
Just on the jetting, you would think, probably old news. I thought there was some issues around Town Hall or something. Were there some issues with the main up there that required jetting, or?
I can't hear you,
Were there
Carl.
issues with Town Hall? I thought there was some issues
Some weeks ago, sure.
weeks ago. What was that about?
There was a block in the internal line. There was a separation in the pipe, the vertical pipe.
Internal as in?
In the building,
Oh,
actually in the assessor's office, and that was created by a block in the dead-end manhole. And there's so much, there's such a volume of material coming out of Town Hall with no push, that all the places, what we call the dead end, or all the high spots, many of the high spots can have that problem. We had that problem at the police station. We had the problem a couple of times here. So Bob, actually, I asked Bob to put it on the calendar so that we'll do a preemptive strike so it doesn't happen here again. We did the Sunny Hill area, which is also a high area. We did that a couple of years ago. So that would really be those would really be the spots that would back up. Obviously, because it's Town Hall, it has a bigger impact on all the services we provide, so we're going to do that on a regular basis. We've already got that on a schedule for 3 months, 6 months, whatever we decided, yeah.
Is that, I don't know the technology, is that jetting? Does that fit into jetting, or?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. So nothing comes out of the line, it just gets, pushed down.
Just pushing off. The only other thing, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to request again, that we find out what manholes on Mass Ave we replace the grates and frames and grates on, so that we can keep our documentation up to date. Can we get that identified, Jack, please?
Yeah, maybe I can put that on Pat to do that. On Weston and Sampson, rather, to do that.
Okay. All right. Good. I think you're good.
Welcome, Ryan.
Thanks.
No turning back now.
Jack, thank you very much. Always appreciate it.
I want to stay for longer.
Did Jack want to stay for the next one?
Yeah, maybe.
For the DEP report?
DEP report and the prioritization.
Prioritization of the tasks.
Oh, right. Yeah, you asked me that, and I emailed it to you.
Was Pat Cotton?
Yes, we have his input.
Oh, he's not coming.
He'll be to the next one. We were going to email this table for prioritizing the tasks at hand for the DEP. And when we give that back to him, then he'll come and present what he proposes to send back to the DEP. But we weren't supposed to, the commission was going to go and correct the table. Yep.
I knew he submitted the letter. I knew the letter was, for lack of a better term, rejected or needed more information. He came to a meeting that I attended, and you sort of sent him on his way to do certain things.
Yes.
But we still have to prioritize the list of tasks.
The DEP asked for more specificity on when and how we were going to accomplish the tasks that we said we wanted to do.
These tasks.
So this is his third? Did he send a second letter?
No, no. We have to respond to the DEP by the end of June. This
Okay.
is just the table that the commission might have input on before we send it back to the DEP on how we want to prioritize the work.
Well, I thought they wanted the dates.
They want dates.
Yeah, they wanted dates.
Right.
So Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead.
I dive into it. I did look at what Pat had sent as a sort of a revised structure of a letter and the tables. The one comment I would make is I think we need to get all of the things he's referencing, because he says a lot of things attached and they're not here. Maybe you have them, Barb,
Barb, I had I'm very sorry.
for all the attachments.
No.
Because it was
No. Well,
huge.
it's 302 pages, so I can,
So
but it's,
electronically.
yeah, I can. What I asked him for was almost a table of contents, because it is 300 pages, and it's all the INI reports that Boston and Sampson has done since 2010.
Yeah, so it's just all the reports that we've already seen.
Yes. I've seen.
It's nothing new and different beyond all the reports we've seen.
I still don't like to approve anything that has attachments I haven't
He's
seen.
coming.
I just send them
he's
on.
coming
If you got
to the
them
next-
electronically, just send them on.
Put it in the Google Drive?
It's actually, he sent me a
Put it on
little.
Google Drive.
Yeah, we put it on the Google
Yeah,
Drive.
that's fine.
And that could be a
Just
list.
so you get at it.
So he knows what he has to go back to DEP with?
He's coming actually to the meeting on the 12th.
Okay, but he understands what he needs to go back to DEP.
Yes.
What information they need,
Yes.
right?
And he just-
He has that.
Sewer Commission input on this table that says project priority, project year.
Should we
He
do
just
this
needs-
first, second, and third? What is the order that we should do this?
Okay.
Well, it's not just the order.
It's the dates.
Dates.
It's the order and the dates.
Right.
Right. Well, the date will apply.
And even the tasks, we need to talk about the tasks. I mean, we've never really talked about this table. We were under the gun, need to approve something when we got it put in front of us. We had some discussion about,
Actually, I do think we
priority.
did vote to approve this table, but
We voted to submit the thing. We had a discussion and agreed. This is what we have here. That the priorities
that's right.
were not.
Right, the tasks
We're not
were, the
signed up
tasks
for.
were, okay, but the priorities were not.
Right.
I agree with that completely. We did do that. With the priorities, we have to decide. But we did agree on the tasks.
Yeah, I think the structure of the tasks is fine. I mean, when you get into detail, things get messier, but at that level for the state, I think it's fine. But I think in order for us to identify priorities of these, we need to have some discussion about the order of them. And we also need some pricing. Because if we don't know what they cost, I don't know how much we can afford each year. So I don't know how we can put a timeline on it without understanding the cost of the task.
It's the original one.
What we are planning to budget for any given year, and then put them out in time. If this is $50,000 worth of work, then no big deal. If it's $200,000 worth of work.
Tried to get around that by coming up with what we thought the priorities were, not
Right.
knowing how far out.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you have the flexibility of the time frame, it doesn't matter. Then we can just focus on priorities. But now we need more than priorities. We need to assign a time. So some of these, for instance, the 2011 metering that we did, that all of this stuff so far is based on, that was, I believe that was about $60,000. We had to spread that over 2 years in order to be able to fund to that level. So somewhere, and I don't know, Jack, how are we going to get some rough idea of scope? We don't have time to go get quotes, but we need to get some rough idea of the scope of these, both the cost and the amount of time it will take to do them. Because it's certain, like the metering is 6 months to begin with.
Okay, but the problem is, this has to be submitted by June 30th.
By June 30th, yeah, so we've got 2 more meetings to discuss this.
That's true, but to get the kind of pricing that we now need to get, we're going to need more detailed descriptions of the tasks.
First of all, what you're asking is just back up a second. What you're asking is he needed a prioritized list, first of all.
This has to, yes,
right?
we have to, this is
And
not.
the first 2 are what we spoke about tonight. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The next 5 follow the same schedule that was followed in the Whalum District. Insofar as you do the smoke first, you do the building inspection second, the infiltrate, I won't read it all, 3rd, and then you go to rehab on 4 and 5. So the priority, the first question is what are the priorities? These are the priorities here. What we've done in the past,
Can I disagree now, or should I wait till the end? Because I think it's we have a very fundamental issue here that we're not coming to grips with.
No, let's let Jack finish.
Oh, that was a question to Jack, I thought.
Oh,
Go
sorry.
ahead, Jack.
so the first question you asked me is, do I think that this is the prioritized list? Is it in the correct order? And my answer to that is yes. I'm not sure, it doesn't surprise me that you don't agree, so what's your fundamental difference?
Well, the real high-level fundamental problem I have is we know from data we've been taken with the metering system and the input, we know we have a lot of I&I, way too much I&I. Pick a month, it's 20.
Well, yeah, I mean,
It's 30 to 40.
people have known that for 18 years, Carl, so you're stating the obvious, yeah.
Okay, but everything we're doing is based on a 2011 metering report. Even at the meeting that I watched where Weston Sampson is, we're basically assuming, Weston Sampson is saying that we have, in that report, we identified, and I forget the numbers, maybe like roughly half of the town was contributing 80% of the I&I. And that half of the town, maybe it was a little less, but that half of the town, we did the process that you just said. It's the logical process. You go smoke test, you watch the house.
This was, you're talking on the heels of the temporary meters throughout the town?
Yes, yeah. The
Okay.
2011 report is the temporary meters,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's what everything is based on. So we took that, we went and addressed that whole list of things for that 80% of where we thought 80% of the I&I was. We did a number of things, whether we addressed everything or not, I'm not sure, but we did a number of things, and we got some feedback that we saved this much here, and some pumps and all these, lots of numbers, all over the place. We're now saying that, we're now claiming success, and we don't need to look at that part of the town anymore, so we're going to go do that same process in the other part of town. Well, if that was 80% of the I&I, and we've addressed it, why do we still have so much I&I? I don't think we're ready to go spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on the other 20% of what the 2011 report told us, because it doesn't make sense. How can all of this I&I be coming from that 20%? I don't believe we've...
How accurate is the 2011 report to that?
It's the basis of everything. It's the basis of everything.
Well, I didn't say whether it was the basis or not. How accurate is it? Do we know? I mean, do we have...
It should be extremely accurate. I mean, these are meters that were put in place specifically for that purpose. They were used to monitor against
I
rain.
just remember one of my first meetings that we were talking about how inconsistent those meters were, and there were problems with them.
No.
We're not talking about the flow meters that are in the lines permanently.
We're talking...
Back in 2011, was it 5 or 6?
Oh, you're talking about the
different flow
difference
meters
between the
that were brought
income and the
in?
outflow?
No, 2011, we put we monitored 6 meters, what Weston Sampson did. They broke the town up, they monitored 6 meters, they looked at rainfall to try to differentiate. The result of that was they said these particular sections, meters are looking at, are contributing 80% of the I&I, and 20% is coming from everything else. Okay? So our focus was on getting rid of that 80%. For the last 5-6 years, we've been focusing on that, and the last piece of that focus was Whalen. And we went to Whalen and we found some more things.
Right.
Okay? And all along, we've been getting reports, we saved 20,000 here, we saved 10,000 there. We're now basically walking away from that area and saying, let's now go look at the rest of town. And I don't think we have reviewed the data that we have sufficiently to know that it's not still 80%. Nobody's taken all the numbers that we've claimed to save and said, yeah, this is the I&I identified, this is what we've saved most of it, so we should be down to the 20%. We haven't done that. So I don't know that we've addressed the 80% of town yet.
So you're hypothesizing that we don't know, not that it hasn't been addressed. It may have been addressed if we put the meters back in and look at it.
Right, yes. If we do
Nine is
something
illegal
to...
infiltration.
Yes, in other words, the water that
Infiltration
goes-
and inflow.
The water that goes in, we know how much from the water meters in the houses, and then how much are we charged for at the treatment plant?
Gotcha.
Because that's a different volume there.
So
But it may be, if we looked at the numbers, that it's okay.
it may be, so that's why, I mean, if I was, if this was my money, which I treat it as,
Okay, now I understand where you're coming from,
I'm
which
just
is
afraid
good.
we don't
Okay.
know where it is, so why go spend a whole bunch of money?
But it may be gone. You're saying we don't know. It might even be gone, but we don't know.
It ain't gone per our meters.
Yeah, it's not gone all the way.
Well, it's never going to be gone to zero. You know that.
No, but it's
But it's
not,
30,
it's not.
40%.
Yeah, it's not
It's
reduced to the
40%?
point where you would think it would be.
So it's
Some
half.
months it's been 50%, but,
It's half of what it used to be.
no.
It's 80%, now it's 40%.
I&I, 80% of what we send out of town, I mean, almost 50% on some quarters is I&I. I find it hard to believe that that is all coming out of the other 20% of town.
I see.
So what's your proposal? What do you?
My proposal is that, I mean, it's like any other process, and you guys probably rolled through that, you look for a problem, you come up with a plan, you go implement the plan, you go review the plan, you check the results, and then you take the next step. We've done a lot of work, we got a lot of good data, we've done a lot of work on that 80%.
We just haven't verified it yet.
We've never checked the result.
Yeah,
We've
okay.
never really identified, did we accomplish what we
So
think
can
we need to do?
Can
So
we
the
have
first
Weston
step, I
and
think-
Sampson go and look and give us a
Well, I think somebody
report?
should. I think to effectively use our money, the first step is to try to take the data we have somebody, and my personal recommendation would be an independent source to come in, look at our data, look at the work we've done, what we've claimed for success, look at our meter data, look at all the stuff we have. We don't have to create anything. To look at those things and say, yeah, it looks like the 80%, you've addressed. So yes, you should now go look at the 20%. But if it comes back and says, you still need to be focused on that 80% area because you didn't get enough, then we don't want to go do smoke tests in the rest of town, because what we're talking about is, like a 5-year plan here, to go look at the rest of town. And I don't know that that's where the problem is. I have no current data that says that's where the problem is. And how would I go from 80%, from 20% then, to this huge problem we have today? It just doesn't make sense, that's all. So I think the first step should be check the results of the work we've done. Verify the results of the work we've done. And that'll guide us to the next step.
By June 30th. That's the problem.
Sorry?
By June 30th.
No. Oh, no. All we're doing is come up with a list of what we're going to do.
Right.
And what are we going to do first, second, third? and
So
fourth.
are you then, okay, so I'm trying to follow you, but I think maybe I have it.
Good.
Are you saying that we should have another task added to this list that is presently not on this list, which is to say, have a quality review of the work already done in this area?
That would do it.
That would do it.
That would do it.
So,
Well,
okay.
you could, my thought was, if you don't want to confuse the state or anything with new tasks, you could add language to task 7 that would incorporate that. Because you may come out of that investigation and determine that we need to get some metering data, right? So you could, so the things that I envision you can do exactly what you said. Have someone come in, take a look at our data, and give us an analysis of where it's coming from. A piece of that could be using the pump stations, which is data we have. You don't even have to go forward, you can go backwards. We have pump stations data
Okay,
for 2 years.
let's,
So you could look at the data we have, and then determine...
I'm with you on that.
Do you need to put meters in? Because
I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. I understand your point, and I agree with it. I think we need, I don't think we should build it into task 7, but I think we should have a separate task so we can put it in the right priority order. And the task should be to reevaluate the first section that was done before progressing down this chart. I mean, I just don't, I want to keep it neat. I don't want to mess this priority list up, and I don't want to mess the, like Jack said, well, 1 and 2, okay, and then before we do the same chain of events down below, maybe we should have another task in between 2 and 3 that says, before moving on, we are going to have some evaluation of the success of our endeavors on this section of town. Are you happy with that?
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Okay, so how do you feel about that?
That's fine. I'm just trying to bring it back to the deadline on the letter, and maybe not, and I don't think Carl's asking for that, is the details on how, but rather to add it as a task for future.
Yeah.
And that's, isn't that so that we can concentrate on getting this in on time?
Yes. Okay, so I'm going to make a motion if I might. Mr. Chairman, may I make a motion?
I can't stop you.
Okay. Well, may I have the floor to make a motion?
Go right ahead.
I'm going to say that we insert between the present list of task 2 and task 3, a new task. I'm going to call it 2A right now, just because I don't want to confuse the issues. That task is to evaluate the success of the work we have done on I&I remediation in, what do we call that area? It was already done in.
Well, I think on a map, it's actually numbered, and,
You can use these meter number areas, actually.
Yep.
Give them to me,
Isn't it kind of
please.
like
I don't know
number
which
7?
ones it is.
We just move 7 up.
No, because that's
It's
when you're
not
way
one,
over
it's
there.
not 1, 2, or 4, or 5.
Brian, 7's the result of these, okay? So as we do those, these are the ones we talked about
Previously treated
tonight.
for I&I remediation.
She's talking about putting a line in here
211.
consistent with Carl's,
Muddy it.
Previously,
why don't you know what?
3 and 6. I think it's
Instead of-
3 and 6,
I
John.
think you can make the motion more generic, and then, isn't Pat coming in, did
Yeah,
you
I
say?
mean, we can fill that in, but I think it's 3 and 6, because that's what, if you look at the previously completed,
6,
it's 3 and
okay.
6, and if
3
you
and
look at the
6.
future ones, it's 1, 2, 4,
Okay,
and 5.
so that we insert a task, I'm going to call it 2A because it's just going between 2 and 3, it's not part of 2. And it would be to evaluate the success of the I&I remediation that has already been done on areas
What did I say, 3 and 6?
3 and 6.
Yeah, and Pat will correct us if it's wrong.
That's a
I'm pretty sure
motion.
that's it.
That's a motion.
Well, if he corrects it if it's wrong, then the motion doesn't really
Just
stand.
say the,
Area already done.
Thank you.
fine.
Do we have a second?
I would second that.
All right. I only ask we amend it, instead of saying to evaluate the successes, we change it to verify effectiveness.
I can live with that.
Okay.
Nice. You're a real quality guy.
Oh, that's the last step. It's the last step of the corrective action process.
Exactly right.
Any other discussions? So you amended it?
Yep,
Or the
I amended
amendment?
it.
You could second the amendment? Any other discussion about that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that's all ayes. So now that we have the 2A,
But before we do that, Barb, will you mail that to Pat before he comes next time so he can see what we've done?
Yes, we have to still, we still have to look at this.
We have to put dates down now.
so the Carl's point earlier, he did mention that there's no money tied to any of this, correct? There's nothing, we don't have any gross estimates or anything like that, Jack, right?
No,
So I kind of agree that it is kind of difficult to,
only based on the, what it costs us in Area 3, or whatever it
previous
was.
work done.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point, Jack, because we have that history, right? We've gone through this time, this inflation and all those things, but we did smoke testing, we did all these steps in the
Right.
area we just talked about.
Yeah.
So we know what that cost,
I'm sure we do.
so we could, and we know how many houses were involved,
Right.
because that probably changes, right?
Well, yeah, it does, but I mean, then you could,
But we can get in the ballpark.
just
I would think, with
yeah.
that Data.
So the idea of having, I don't know that DEP is is that they care about those values, but you're saying we care because we want to make sure we can do them in a
time.
year. But are we looking for a year, or are we looking for an order?
Both, we have to give
We
them
need to give them a
dates.
schedule, that's the...
schedule.
That's what got us, that's why we would have been okay with the order. But they want to know when we're going to do it.
Well,
And that's when, when we have that history, at least for the cost, so that...
Is there a way to get that?
One piece is the financial piece.
yeah, I think if you let Barb and I put together an email to ask him a couple of questions, so that he's prepared to come in on the 12th with some answers.
So I think that's probably the best way. Let's get that information, keep this on the agenda for the 12th. Obviously, if it doesn't get done the 12th, we'll put it on the next one, but let's try and get it done the 12th.
Yeah, but instead of coming in on the 12th and starting it from ground zero, give him the information, this is what we're looking for. I think I get an idea, Barb, you get an idea where group is going, where they'd like to go. And we can give him that information, and he can get a head start on that for the 12th.
Great.
Yeah, because I don't see, we should be able to get this done on the 12th, if, as you say,
Yeah.
come in with some information.
Yep.
The other piece we'll have to put in the equation is how long will it take? And give ourselves some...
And we've got that.
Some margin for...
We've got a history of that, too.
The quoting process, the RFQ, because these things take years, right? So we should have, if we have some good sense of, how long the task should take, for getting money, and then how much money it costs, then we ought to be able to put a schedule together.
Yes.
How long it takes and how much money Barb asked.
And we'll keep it on for the 12th.
We'll keep it off the top.
I think that's it for DEP, right? All right.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Jack.
Sure, thank you, guys.
Appreciate it. Next item is the communications plan workshop discussion. This is just to talk about a date, attendees, location, and time. It's not to go into any discussion about how we do communications now. That'll be done for the workshop. How stacked up is our next agenda already?
We've Pat, I think that might be.
But, Joe, excuse me, Barb, I'm sorry to interrupt. When you weren't here, and the attorney was here, he said, and I think most of us agreed, that a meeting where he's going to do a workshop for just the sewer commission on open meeting law. So we're all together.
Yeah, but this is the,
And the communication, we discussed having the communication workshop at the same meeting. So we would have a meeting that was for open meeting training and a communication workshop. Did I get that right? Didn't we discuss that?
Yeah,
Doing
no,
both of those at the
we all
same
agreed
meeting?
that.
you
We all
guys agree with
We all
that? How much is that costing us? That's a, because it comes out of sewer.
The end of open meeting law violation.
Will it?
The 12th is not, all we have really is Pat at this point.
We can throw it out there if you guys want to do that with, you can ask Adam if he's available.
You should ask Heather, too, for the communication workshop, if she's available.
It can't be a Tuesday.
Yeah, right.
26th.
Could we do a separate meeting, a special workshop meeting for
We
that?
want to do it when we have Pat, because that could go.
Yeah, no, I think do it.
So the 26th, you want to do the 26th?
That would be before Tuesday, or do it as a separate meeting.
I just get concerned that we've got work to do, and, that will be the meeting.
So that's the whole point of this. So is dates for availability, location, I would think the DPW is probably the best location for it.
Does that work with Heather? Yes?
So did
What's the date that you suggested, Heather?
the 26th, is it, the Tuesday, last Tuesday?
So that's our regular meeting here.
Should it be televised?
Doesn't matter to me if it's televised, it's open either way.
So you do not want to do it on the 26th?
I don't mind doing it on the 26th.
I'm fine with doing it on the 26th. And Adam said to just let
I
me
actually
know.
prefer keeping it on a regular meeting night if we can. So 26, Heather, what's 26 worth for Heather? So we have to ask, please, will you? Thank you.
And Jack?
And Jack. same time, regular 6:30. Make it so there's no appointments in the beginning, and if possible, that's every meeting. It'd be great if we could all be here. But if things come up, things come up. So we'll shoot for the 26th, and Heather, you'll let us know if Adam's available. Is that good for everybody? John, you looking at your calendar?
Yes,
Want me to wait?
6:30?
6:30 is the start time, yeah?
It's okay with me.
You good?
Why does it seem like there's an abundance of open meeting law violations on this board?
Because there are violation claims on the board. I wouldn't say violations per se, but there have been 3 in the past month and a half, 2 months.
Interesting.
I can get them to you if you want.
Good.
Bob, can you send all 3 of them?
I believe it's required. I think the clerk will provide you all the violations to review. I think that's a requirement of open meeting.
You'll have them all.
Go to the training, but if we have it at the meeting, then you'll be all
But I
set.
will be happy.
And you have to,
Yeah, would you? Just to make sure. So Bob will send them to you too.
I did the online one when I was on the other board.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you probably, yeah, because you,
what board were you on?
I'm on AdCom too, so I had to do all the online stuff.
Yep. But Barb will send them to you, so you can take a look at them. There's 3 of them. One of them's already closed.
So does he review, like, the complaint, just reviews emails? And then kind of just,
Depends on what the complaint is about emails, and yeah. Otherwise, if it's a phone call or something like that, they talk to the people whoever's listed on the open meeting law gets involved in it. I wasn't here for the beginning, but I have to assume that he probably talked to you, and probably talked to you, and you
He did
probably got
talk to me.
emails from you and things like that, so I'll watch it tomorrow. Yeah, we'll get you all the complaints, take a look at them.
all right.
2 of them are still open, one's closed. Grease trap regulation, okay, so we're done with that, we're good. We're gonna check availability, and anything changes, or if Adam's not available or something like that, we'll let you guys know. Grease trap regulation compliance,
That's that.
compliance list for annual permits for review.
That's the people who were not compliant all year, they get a higher fee at the end, right? Did I get it right, Barb?
Yes.
And
Put it on a slightly larger font, if that helps.
she didn't, you did, yeah.
Usually I'll go past 9.
The orange in the middle section are the current. Orange I just left on were from last year, just as a FYI.
I'm sorry, Barb, can you say that again?
Just, this is the current.
This is the current
Yeah,
column.
if you could fold it on that white column for current
I got it.
compliance.
Thank you.
I just had left what was last year.
This is like,
Sorry.
So what's orange?
You want to fold it like this, Joe?
No, I can read it like that, that's fine, I'm just wondering.
Just,
So orange is non-compliant.
non-compliant for some reason, and the reasoning was put in there, no response.
I thought Crossroads was,
It's all set, but.
They're done now, right?
it's Non-compliant.
oh, so this is just a report of the whole year, okay. sorry.
Right, and if they've been late at any time during the year, they have to pay a higher fee at the end of the year to renew their permit.
Okay,
There's like a reward for being appropriate all year, you get a lower fee.
it's like all-state insurance.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So this is pretty cut and dry, right? I mean,
Yeah,
we don't have to do anything.
No, we don't do anything, it's just a report.
notification.
Yep.
What if they don't pay? What if they don't pay?
We cut off sewer usage.
They have like 3 strikes, or?
No, we'd have to go really extreme for that. We
have a hearing.
there's a lot of
invite them in,
fees,
they get
it starts with fees and things like that, and a lot of responses.
this is all relative to, every year they need to get a permit.
Yep.
So you just don't get a permit if you don't pay.
Okay, I will send out the letters this week.
Grease trap interceptor annual permit renewals will be sent out after commission review, yep. Wayland Kitchen appealing fine. Do we want to get council input?
I did get council's input.
And-
He's gonna take another look. He still believes it falls back to the owner, but understands the situation where it's sublet.
So he has it.
He's gonna take a closer look and get.
Okay, whenever he gets back to us, we'll just keep it on there.
His concern is though
Held a
that
minute
we
ago.
should, at this point, his input was to withhold the permit for July 1st if it's not resolved. So-
I agree with that completely.
Generally, yeah, if that's what he thinks we should do, then yeah, I agree too.
But he will.
But let's wait and see.
I have not corresponded because we were waiting on council input.
Okay.
So he's going to get back to me on that.
All right, we'll put it on the agenda when he gets back to you. Minutes of 5/8/18. Anybody have any comments on the minutes of 5/8/18? We want to make a motion to approve the minutes of 5/8/18.
Sure, I will.
All right, there it is. Anybody second it?
Second.
All right, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved. Q4 FY18 commitment for sewer billing, 207-182-23.
This is my Q4 bills, just need commitment.
Why can't Ryan sign?
Ryan can't sign this, it is dated the date the mailing, of
Oh,
the
so he was, because he wasn't on the
Right.
commission yet, he can't sign?
He-
You're off the hook, dude.
I have Troy's name still on here, but I know,
Can you NA it?
yes. So, sorry, Ryan, next time.
You get to sign invoices next time.
It's quite a privilege.
There's two tabs. What are you
There's a
doing?
warrant and
Come on.
commitment.
What are you, new?
One for the treasurer and one
So
for
I need
the
one more year.
accountant.
I'll get it soon.
And one day you'll notice two tabs.
Yes.
I plow his driveway.
I don't know those invoices, Joe.
He's got a long driveway.
Consider them skipped.
Okay.
Invoices skipped.
And just as an FYI, we are updating the sewer service map based on the approvals at town meeting.
Yes.
So that they're correct online.
So
That's all.
Tilton Ave will get added in.
Yes.
It's just Tilton Ave, right? Yeah.
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 It's being updated as we speak.
They work, well, Audra's bearing the 8th grade DC trip right now. My son's there. I don't know why she would sign up for that. She did last time, too. She's a glutton, yeah. Now she's great. All right. That's all you got?
Just before we leave business manager report, there's...
You're not the business
some
manager.
confusion. No, I'm not. I watched the tape from last week. Still on this, billing and the munis quote. And although we certainly all agreed that we weren't going to try to implement anything until August, or I don't know what the window of opportunity was, August timeframe. So, and that's agreed, there was no question on that. However, we can't even finish getting a discussion about whether we want to do it or not until we get the munis quote. So that's why I was looking for munis quote. I don't think we should wait until August to ask for a quote from munis.
Just ask for the quote then.
So
It can't hurt to get a quote. Want to ask for it?
Just there's a lot of other things going on. That's the point.
Can we
Well,
finish
just do
the
everything faster.
irrigation meters? I don't think we should wait till August, but, except
Well, but
we're almost to
understand
June,
that-
so.
Yeah, August is right around the corner.
there's a three-month lead, if we decide to do it, there's a 3-month lead to getting the software and, for our supplier to do, so that we can then implement. So we can't
Bob-
wait till, if you wait till August, you're going to be in December, or, you're going to miss another whole billing cycle, if not more. So, and a quote, because someone in town hall must interface with Munis a lot, right? Can't somebody else just ask Munis for, because all we need is
It's
the
a
data,
submittal.
the
They need
data
a-
format.
Right. They need information. It's a more formal process. We tried, I did try, and she said, no, here's what you need.
Is it something somebody on the commission can do, not, so you wouldn't have to do it? Or is that an only thing?
And I looked at it once and thought, right now, it was just so many other things.
Yeah, that's fine. If you have a minute or two to look at it and say, hey, I think that somebody else on the commission could do this,
Yeah.
let us know, and then we'll give it to somebody whose name rhymes with schmuck.
Happy to help, just to get through, because that's the last thing we need. Then we can have a discussion and...
Yeah, that's good. Because, it doesn't always have to be you doing that type of stuff. Okay. Thank you. Member agenda inputs for future meetings? Anybody have anything? I think we discussed a lot of them, as we always do, throughout the meeting.
Still got the DEP, and
Yep, we got that, we gotta move on that.
We come up with quite a list, us.
but I think irrigation meters should go on.
irrigation
Because now we
meters
have
today.
information, now we shouldn't wait weeks and weeks and weeks to have the discussion.
To answer your question, I have an ongoing list of a lot of inputs, and I have to, every week when the agenda comes out, I remove or add.
I think that's important. It's not the meters, it's the whole, because when I start going through it, there's a lot of things we need to clean up. For instance, we've got 2 documents, we shouldn't have 2 documents.
No.
Do you have any
But we
input
don't-
for future
there's nothing
agenda
that
meetings?
addresses-
But
Are you adding anything right now?
No, just,
We said
that's
yes.
not
No, but
irrigation
not,
meters.
but no, but that's what I was saying. It's not just irrigation meters. We need more than one topic under irrigation meters. We need the policy review, we need the meter selection. I mean, we need, don't put it on as one item, because it's going to take a long time.
Yeah.
So we
I
can
mean,
chunk it out.
In that item, another one that we need
Chunk
to
it out
discuss
more
in
than
that
one
item is-
agenda then.
No, I'm just saying, put on irrigation policy, irrigation meter selection. And I think we should deal with it all at once. I don't think we should chunk it out and spread it out
Do you
forever.
need a policy before you choose the meter, or?
Not really.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I don't think so, but the only thing, and I agree with you, John, I'm happy you're pressing this, but it's not just irrigation.
Oh, I know. And I want to stick to...
So if we just keep saying irrigation, it's meters.
Meter policy.
Manual meters.
Manual meters. thank you.
And the same meeting that we put that on the agenda, I could have 5 minutes, or maybe 4 minutes, to put on the change in the grease law notification policy. Because if we're going to have a public hearing for a meter policy, we should have the same, at the same public hearing, we should say, we're going to change this from notifying every 2 weeks to notifying every once a month. So our policy matches our practice.
Want to do it the 12th? Sounds like we don't have much going on the 12th anyway. We'll do the 12th.
Irrigation
Policy.
meters, no,
Just
meter
meters?
policy.
Meter policy.
Meter policy.
And meter selection.
Irrigation meters, and then grease law notification policy, which will take 2 minutes.
Yep. Well, nothing takes 2 minutes here. I doubt it'll be
Well, I'm
fast.
bringing my pieces of duct tape for the rest of you.
Please do. I always encourage that. Okay, got all that, Bob? All right. Public comment? Anybody? The board? Public? Take a motion to adjourn? Already seconded. All in favor? All for discussion? No, aye? Okay, ayes all around. All right, perfect.